Step back 66 million years.
When amazing creatures of epic proportions ruled the Earth.
Join Bertie Carvel for Walking with Dinosaurs. Stream all the episodes now on ABC iView.
The ABC Listen app has it all. The British and Irish Lions Tour of Australia, Wimbledon, the World Test Championship, and West Indies versus Australia. Oh, and did I mention we're doing the footy every weekend? ABC Sport on the ABC Listen app.
ABC Sport.
We begin this broadcast by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this match will be played today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening.
It's all on the line. Here we go.
And the moment of truth has arrived.
What a matchup this is. What a game.
The umpire holds the footy up.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else on earth.
On ABC Sport, this is the AFL.
Oh, there's a bit to get inside of the boundary.
The intensity and the pressure in the ball is unbelievable.
Take your moment. This is that moment of the game of footy.
This is just football at its best.
And that'll be it. From walking on thin ice to dancing on the mountaintop, the Brisbane Lions never stopped believing, and they are the champions.
Sit back, relax, witness the greatest. It don't get better than
He called the through for a magnificent goal. Comes out, gathers, snaps, goal.
An extra bit of class.
He smashed that through. What a kick!
Goes bang with everything he's got.
They are leaving nothing out there.
Listen to the roar.
The drop punt. He's gone, and the building is jumping. We know he's a big shot taker. He's a big shot maker. Leans back on the kick. Game on.
Like camera action, baby. Countdown to contact.
From the right forward on it. Oh, he's a sharpshooter, all right.
Step up in the big moment.
Points to the man on the mark. Drop punt. He's there. Gathers, snaps. He'll bring the house down.
Sit back, relax, witness the greatest. It don't get better than this.
He'll put it on the boot. Kick up towards the logo.
You take a seat, cause it don't get better than
He
this.
defies the laws of gravity. He runs onto it 50 from goal. He's in Dusty's pocket. He shoots. Oh, he's as bloody good as Dusty. Oh, yeah. Rose snaps goal. The drop punt. It's good. And you can hear that mighty roar. Walks one way and the next and the snap. There's the finish. 60 out. Oh, my goodness. That's a massive hit. Big time spot. Big time goal kicker.
That's why we love football. Brilliant to watch.
From the centre wicket, whacks it for six, scores level, running past, throws it on the left, could that be the sealer? Seconds ticking down, we're not done yet, what a finish!
Welcome to the 2025 AFL Premiership season on ABC Sport. On radio, on digital, and on the ABC Listen app.
You take a seat, cause it don't get better than this.
It's a proverbial 8-point game for all the wrong reasons this afternoon as Port Adelaide and Melbourne clash for a chance to continue their fairy tale with the losers set to be relegated to the bottom four. Albertson buzzing after Port Adelaide's win over the Giants last week and the upcoming debut of mid-season recruit Manny Liddy. Meanwhile, Melbourne's chemistry again in the spotlight. The D's hoping the return of former skipper Jack Viney can settle the club's concerns after a big clash between Stephen May and Max Gawn during the King's birthday match. You bottle all of that up into a matchup with 2 single-digit margins last season, and it has all the makings of a Sunday special on ABC Sport. Great to have you with us for it at the Adelaide Oval. The sun is out, but it's a very cold day, top of 14 expected. Both sides warming up at the moment on the middle of the Adelaide Oval. Aaron Bryans to call the action for you this afternoon, and alongside me is Tom Wilson. Afternoon, Tom.
G'day, Aaron. G'day, everyone. It is, as you said, good conditions, but cold. And what are we going to get from these two teams is the big question. Port Adelaide bounced back after a 4-game losing streak. We've seen the highs and the lows with Port Adelaide this season, and the same with Melbourne. But last week's performance, how would we view that if they actually got over the line, which they probably deserve to do considering they're kicking in front of goal? They lose by a point to the probably premiership favourites, and we're looking at this matchup probably a lot differently. The Max Gawn, Stephen May incident doesn't happen. So I think they're sneakily going better than their record suggests. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Port Adelaide, but at home you've got to win, and as you said, an 8-point game because probably the loser is out of September action.
tight season. If the Giants and the Dockers don't win yesterday in what some could deem as games they probably shouldn't have won, it's not a 3-game gap between these sides at the moment. So, yeah, the 8's starting to creep further away from Melbourne and Port Adelaide. You wouldn't want to lose this afternoon and be relegated to the bottom 4. It's certainly a very pivotal matchup in what is a close season. Your experts, they've got a lot of accolades combined, including 2 All-Australian Blazers, 5 showdown medals across them. It's great to welcome Scott Thompson back to the ABC Sport Box. Good to see you, Tomo.
Aaron, thank you, mate. Great to be here, gentlemen.
Alongside Scott Thompson, we've also got Josh Franco, the power star. Good to see you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, and good afternoon, everyone. Terrific day for footy. We wind the clock back 24 hours. It was an absolute pig of a day here in Adelaide, pouring with rain, but now the sun's out. The very light wind looks like it's blowing to the south, but probably the big story for me is Port Adelaide. They've almost been the Jekyll and Hyde of the AFL this year. They've had some horrible losses. They had some great wins. Terrific in Canberra last week against GWS. GWS then come out and beat Brisbane. How do you pick it? So, talking off air before the game commences, who wins this game, I don't know. And obviously looking at Melbourne as well, their form has been better than what it was early in the season, but it does set itself up to be a pretty big contest.
Previous meetings don't help either. So they traded victories last year at different venues. So Port won at the G, Melbourne won here. The D's have beaten Port Adelaide in 4 of the last 6, but at Adelaide Oval they've only won 2 of the last 5. So none of the numbers really matter when it comes to these two sides matching up. It's a total toss of the coin, which is a nightmare for tipsters, but certainly very entertaining as viewers. What did you make of Port Adelaide's win last weekend, Tomo? Because I was there in Canberra, very cold night. I kind of felt like it was the same footy I'd seen over the last month, and they were very bullish about not only the fact they'd won, but they felt they'd improved. I didn't see much change.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a game that set the world on fire. For me, the Giants look well off their best. They look well off their best of maybe where they were yesterday, and you could argue Brisbane probably should have won that game yesterday, just their inability to convert in front of goal. But for me, Port Adelaide have been far too inconsistent for even a team that you want to talk about for September action. Huge losses throughout the season of 80, 90 plus points. For me, you just do not know what you're going to get. Melbourne last week come off a game that they should have won, and just their lack of composure late, and what soured that loss even more so, as we've spoken about a lot, was the Gawn May incident, where it became the focal talking point out of a game that Melbourne should have won, and probably been having a whole lot of a different conversation around Melbourne throughout the week. So I'm looking forward to a good game of footy. For me, I think Melbourne will get it done. Port Adelaide far too inconsistent, and you just don't know what Port team's going to turn up.
On that incident between Stephen May and Max Gawn, Josh Franco, you were at the Gold Coast Suns for a period of time. The overlap with Stephen May?
Missed him. I just missed him. Yeah.
So any word from inside the camp, maybe from the people that you knew at the time, about his character and maybe what kind of a role that would have played? What did your reactions to the incident?
Well, yeah, look, I must admit, when you see the incident, particularly in such a big game on a big occasion with such a big spectating audience, it just wasn't the time or place to go at a Max Gawn, who's captain of the footy club. He's the heart and soul of Melbourne. And regardless of whether it's a captain or not, I reckon those conversations, they have to happen behind closed doors. It's just not a good look.
It isn't at all, is it? And for me, Stephen May, I don't know him personally, but seems to be the common denominator, and every time there's an incident within the Melbourne Footy Club. And you mentioned Max and being the heart and soul and a long-term leader of the football club who always backs his team, and for a teammate to go at him at that time in the game, when that wasn't the reason they lost, but I thought it could have been handled far better by May. But again, I don't know the bloke, but for me, he just needs to tone it down and pull his head in somewhat.
The one thing I will say about Max Gawn and listening to him post-game, I actually got quite angry listening to Max Gawn apologise for his behaviour. I thought that was so far off the mark it wasn't funny.
It's a testament to his character, because he's a true leader in the way that he handled it, that he tried to own it to avoid anyone else popping any blame. But I was the same as you, where I thought, gee, this guy has carried them for years through a lot of off-field drama, and again, he's the one who's had to take ownership of an incident that wasn't really his fault.
Spot on.
So great for Max Gawn's character once again, but it's unfortunate that he had to paint himself as the villain when it was Stephen May who was coming at him a couple of times late in that game. Big contest, Port Adelaide and Melbourne, coming your way on ABC Sport. Let's head down into the rooms in the build-up with Bounce Down about 40 minutes away. Josh Money, good afternoon, and you're down in the Port Adelaide race.
Sure am, Aaron. It's actually beautiful conditions down here. Quite a warm sun, really, on what's been a cold few days. And speaking of colds, Chris Davies, we've got the Port Adelaide footy boss here. There's been a bit of sickness in the camp. Is everyone fit and ready to go today?
Yeah, they are. We'll have no excuses. I think I was patient A, so I've wiped my nose. I'm ready to go.
How did you assess how you played last week? You're back on the winners list. Was there a change in the mood and environment in the club this week after what had been a month without being on the winners list?
Yeah, I mean, of course there was. You know, we had a month prior to that, which was disappointing from a result perspective. You know, what we did, what we were really clear on over the break was that we needed to look forward for the rest of the year and not, you know, leave those performances behind. I think you know, last week was a good start to that, and let's hope that we can get on a bit of a roll now.
Always one week at a time, as we know, but a homestand of 3 straight games, 3 on paper very winnable games. Is it a chance to really bunker down and get your season back on track?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, but you know, we are not looking any further than this game. You know, we've put one good game in a row. Let's hope that we can make it 2 today.
2 weeks ago, Manny Liddy was a fridgie. He's now playing from the start today, not even a sub. So what can we expect from the 23-year-old feel-good story today?
Yeah, look, he's a great story. I mean, a guy who has really chased his career. You know, didn't get drafted. Well, you know, wasn't necessarily spoken about in his draft year. He left Sturt to go to Centrals for some more league footy time, and has certainly played some outstanding SANFL football this year. You know, he's pretty clean. For what we've seen at SANFL level, he uses the ball well. You know, he's a guy who gets his chance today, and let's hope he takes it.
Here's Scott Thompson and Josh Franco.
Chris, Josh Franco up here in the commentary box. Good luck today against Melbourne. Just a quick question. We talk about the inconsistencies at Port Adelaide that we've seen over the last few weeks, and they're almost the Jekyll and Hyde of the AFL. What's the messaging and within the inner sanctum around how you try to iron out those inconsistencies? Do you get the psychologists involved? How do the coaches deal with that?
Well, I mean, the coaches now have to have an element of psychology in them, Josh, don't they?
Yeah.
And you know, as you've highlighted, the reality is our best and worst has been as big at any point in my time at the footy club. So, you know, we have tried to go back with the players to say, look, what are the priorities that we've got to get right from week to week? And you know, I'm sure that today will start with the contest. You know, you've got some blokes around the footy for Melbourne who are outstanding from a contest perspective. Unless we get you know, that competitive attitude against Max Gawn specifically from you know, 2 ruckmen who are out there today. You know, Viney, Petrarca, Oliver, you know, all players who thrive on the contest. So we're going to have to get that right in there if we're going to be any chance today.
Well, Chris, that was going to be my next question about Gawn and playing the 2 ruckmen. Is that the reason Finlayson finds himself out of the team today?
Oh, look, we weren't overly happy with what Jeremy did last week. So the coaches have used their prerogative to change things up. But there's no doubt that Max Gawn provides as big a, you know, opposition threat from a ruck perspective than any ruckman in the competition, and you know, we're going to need Dante and Sweetie to try and work him over as much as they possibly can.
CD, Scott Thompson, mate, how are you?
Good, Tomo.
That's the way, mate. Now, a lot's been said about the succession plan externally, a lot about results externally with the fluctuation in form. The one I want to touch on as far as player retention, and there's been a lot of noise around Butters and Bergman, obviously, but any further news along the contract lines with either of those two? I know Butters is locked in for another year, but where's that at, mate?
Well, yeah, as you've said, I mean, Butsy is contracted to the end of next year, and at that point will likely be a restricted free agent. So I guess we've got an element of control over that, and I'm certain that all Port Adelaide supporters, as the Port Adelaide list management group, want Zach to say. So I'm sure that we'll be talking about extension offers in the short term. I mean, for Miles, who is out of contract at the end of this year, we've got an offer in front of Miles' management. We understand that Miles does things a little bit differently from time to time. He's the guy that has signed his contract at this point in previous years. The good thing about Miles Bergman is, he has come a long way within Port Adelaide. He's a guy who right now is working with our leadership group on what he can provide into the future. He's not going to be without a good offer, but ultimately you can't make some people stay if they don't want to.
Yep. Mate, Horn Francis comes back into the team today. We know he's a barometer for the side. Are we likely to see him spend most of his time at the coalface through the middle, or will he spend a chunk of time in the forward half?
I think he'll spend some time in the forward line, Tomo, but we need Jason Horn Francis to be the best midfielder he possibly can be. So, and when we're going up against the opposition that we are, we need him in there competing the way that he can. So, look, I'm not going to say that he's not going to spend some time forward, but we need him to be the best midfielder he possibly can, mate.
Port Adelaide's GM of football, Chris Davies, with us on ABC Sport, the build-up to the Power and the Ds. CD, it's Aaron Bryans here. You touched on the forward line before with Josh and the omission of Jeremy Finlayson. I know you don't like making excuses for fluctuating form, but it's been a difficult year without Todd Marshall, Jack Lukosius. Finlayson and Lord have been up and down throughout their campaign. Has that played a real factor in the low scoring and inaccuracy?
Well, look, you can't deny the fact that when you're coming into the season and putting the type of pre-season together that we did from a game plan perspective, and the coaches felt like having Marshall and Lukosius out there was going to provide us with a point of difference that we maybe hadn't had in previous years. But we still would have expected to be far better than we've been so far this year. So having Jack back, and Jack took some steps forward last week from his what is now a back injury. His knees recovered fine, so he's now got just a little bit of a disc issue in his back. But having him back available over the next few weeks is going to be a good thing for us, because ultimately he's played one game and about 4 minutes so far for us this year. So Todd's out for the year, so he won't be back. But if we're starting to look forward to 2026, which we're not quite yet, I would hope that having Todd available for a longer period of time will automatically make us better.
That availability factor has been massive through the year, and this afternoon's probably the first chance we get to see your midfield fully in depth. We've had an overlap with Butters and Horn Francis across maybe a month into the campaign, but Bergman wasn't really in the rotation then. So now you've got Bergman, Butters, Horn Francis, Rosie, Wines, Drew. It's a lot of players. How are you going to navigate it today?
Well, I mean, we've got a rotation policy, and as Scotty said before, from someone like Bergman, who's gone into the midfield this year, he's done some amazing jobs on the opposition's dangerous midfielder. Where Drewy has done those in the past, Miles has showed that he's got the ability to go in there and maintain that sort of defensive output, but also he's got the legs to get out of stoppage and beat his opponent out. So I think you can expect to see a little bit of that again tonight. He did a good job on Toby Green last week, whether it was in the midfield or when Green went forward. So that'll be something that we'll think about today.
It's definitely a good problem to have. CD, thanks for your time and best of luck today.
No, good on you guys. Thank you.
Great to have the GM of football, Chris Davies, from Port Adelaide, the build-up to the Power and the Ds on ABC Sport. You can get in touch as well on the text line. 0437 774 774 is the number.
Can I ask a question? Now, I know we've spoken about up here previously. So Port Adelaide let Dan Houston go to Collingwood. He still had 2 years to run on a contract. Was he in the same position as Butters in terms of free agent, restricted free agent, or is it a different scenario? And the reason I ask is I'm really critical of Port Adelaide letting Dan Houston and gift wrapping him in a big red ribbon and give them to the best side in the competition. And in return, obviously, they get draft picks. Lukosius, I think, was part of that as well. I really hope Port Adelaide stand firm on Butters, and if he says he wants to go, but hold him to his contract.
I reckon with Houston's age, he probably ended up being unrestricted.
Right.
After those 2 years. So he still had 2 years to go.
Then, and flogging a dead horse, I understand that, but I just don't understand why you let someone like him go. As I said, I really hope they stand firm on the Butters and say, no, you're not going nowhere until your contract's done.
The restricted free agency is by name only, because no club actually keeps them. True. There's no one who's enforced a restricted free agent. It happens in the NBA all the time, where they get a max contract for that time, and then the club has the choice to match it. I would love to see Port Adelaide be the first club to do it, If Butters gets an 8-year, $1.5 million offer, which he's probably worth in context with some of the other deals that we're going, that are going down at the moment, match it. Because they actually have the right to do it. And I feel like as the AFL industry, we sort of look at it and go, look, he doesn't want to be here. That's why he signed that deal at the other club. But it would be amazing to see a club actually stand firm and say, well, this is the rules.
Did you say 1.5 8 years. Is that 1.5 over 8 years or 1.5? We played in the wrong era, Scotty.
Absolutely, we
played it. It took me 25 years to earn that. No, not even.
No, that's right.
40 years to earn that.
The reality is someone will throw 1.5 at Butters.
Yeah.
The first thing is, could you see Port matching that? And would they have space in their salary long term to be able to pay him that, given some of the other players have already got on their list? So it's a challenge for Port, but I agree with you. Port Adelaide should be doing everything in their power to make him see out his contract for that next 12 months and then convince him to stay. Now, I know that Zach's obviously very close with Ken, and Ken, they've had a very loving relationship, which has been well documented externally. So I don't know where Zach's head at as far as Josh Carr taking over, what their relationship's like. I know Josh is their midfield coach now, so he works closely with Zach, but it's a really tricky subject as far as player-coach relationship versus the pull of going home, and then when we're talking multi-million-dollar contracts, whether you stay or go.
Yeah, being home and premiership windows and all that sort of stuff, and we spoke about it off air. Zach's an inside mid like you guys, but Cozzy Pickett, small forward, the halfbacks, Nasai, Wanganeen, Miller are tall forwards. It's hard being a midfielder, right?
Well, I've always said that in a second life, I want to come back as a free-running, loose-checking, good-kicking halfback flanker and get $1 million a year for 8 years. In all seriousness, you look at a Butters and, the top-line mids in the competition and the combative brand of football that they play. Someone like, I go back to Dan Houston. Sorry, Dan, if you're listening, I'm not picking on you, but someone like a Dan Houston, he can get 3 goals kicked on him. As long as he's getting the ball and using it by foot, inside 50, through the middle of the ground to help with ball movement, he's done his job and gets paid very well to do it. So, small forwards, halfback flankers, the mids are the ones that get the job done, and they're copping the bumps and bruises, but doesn't seem to always see them be the way.
And what are we talking? Pickett's was roughly documented at 12 mil over 9 years.
Yeah, so 1.3, I think, the average.
Yeah, so now he's gone inside and had a look at the midfield, and he's had some real strong bursts through there, and he's shown glimpses of absolutely tearing games apart. But as far as a consistency piece yet, he hasn't put it together for very long at all. But he is a player that I understand. He's a player that will win him a lot of games of footy, but at the same time, he's shown that he can fluctuate with form and he will go missing at times. So it's a huge investment for someone where you see snippets of potential, but is that going to last now that he's locked in on a 9-year contract? Will that consistency come, or does the complacency start to set in, knowing, well, 9 years, I've got 1.3 coming in each year whether I'm playing well or not?
And he's thought about leaving regularly. I mean, there was the link to Fremantle. I know Port Adelaide were very keen to get him here. And we relate back to Dan Houston. He was able to bust out of his deal. I know Bryce Gibbs did back in the day from Carlton. When you sort of say, I'll be a demon for life, you'd be a 50-50 bet, I reckon, that he will be a demon for life.
Yep. That's fair.
I'm kind of in favour of long-term deals. I feel like the odd man out here, but I like the flexibility that clubs have to navigate them. So they go, we've got him for 9 years and we can front-end it, we can back-end it. Hey, maybe this year we lose a couple of stars and we've got a few million spare. Let's pay him now and then sort it out later. I like that aspect of being able to juggle your list with him locked in, but then the opposite, as you touched on, where ACLs happen or he gets homesick, something goes wrong and then you're trapped and you can't do anything with it. The midfielder aspect's funny. So 3 of the top 9 contracts now are midfielders, and they're Luke Davies-Uniacke, Hayden Young, and Connor Rozee, who's technically more halfback these days. But if you actually look at the top 9, it's hard to argue that that's an all-Australian team or the foundations of one. There's a couple of players who are getting big money compared to others that aren't your Buddy Franklins of a previous era.
That's fair.
Do you think it does wonders for Melbourne's culture, though, to lock him in, considering there was so much noise about him leaving?
Well, I guess it does show commitment, doesn't it, to the footy club? So that's something that would permeate throughout the playing group, but also the big supporter base that Melbourne have. So I think that's only a positive, absolutely. And I must admit, I'm in favour of long-term contracts as well. I guess the point that I'm trying to make there is that I'm not in favour of clubs allowing a guy like a Dan Houston to go and gift wrap him to someone else in the best side in Australia and say, here you go, at the expense of the club that you're trying to build and have success at.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is.
Because I think Port Adelaide, in hindsight, would say, look, that domino is completely unravelled our half-back line, and Connor Rose's had to move there now, and we've had to navigate that through the midfield, and it was all to get Jack Lukosius, who's been injured through the whole year. So at the start of the season, they probably thought it was a perfect straight swap in a sense, and it just hasn't played out the way they wanted.
What is the AFL average wage now?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is. Don't know. It's a lot, though.
Because we keep hearing about these long-term deals and how they're multi-million-dollar contracts, and we've heard some of the money thrown around to keep Harley Reid in Perth and etc. with Messiah Wanganeen-Miller, what the Saints might offer him, and De Koning, the Saints trying to get him out of Carlton on these huge long-term deals worth millions and millions of dollars. So I'm just trying to figure out myself now, what is the salary cap? What's the average wage at?
Average last year was $460,000.
Wow.
So, Josh, we certainly played in the right direction. that was the top-paid player.
You guys were considered trailblazers, I think.
It's a different era for sure. The thoughts of Josh Franco, Scott Thompson on ABC Sport, the build-up to Port Adelaide and Melbourne. Teams have dropped, no late changes. So, for Port Adelaide, Hugh Jackson is the sub. For the D's, Xavier Lindsay. So, it means those overall changes will see Jeremy Finlayson, Christian Moraes omitted for the Power, and Travis Boak listed as managed, but I think he was crook as part of the flu that was going around the camp. Matty Liddy, their debutant out of Central Districts, the mid-season pick, former aircon technician, and now gets a chance at league footy. He's got a great tale that we'll go through across the build-up. Jordan Sweet's in, so he'll probably play as the main ruckman and send Dante Vicentini forward with the omission of Jeremy Finlayson, and Jason Horne-Francis back after missing a month with a hamstring injury. For the D's, Jack Viney returns. He's had a really odd 6 weeks, so concussed in round 8, ends up coming back, getting ready to play in Alice Springs against the Saints, and then fractures his hand at training, misses another couple of weeks, and now finally gets a crack at it. They've missed his leadership. He comes in for Colton Tolstrup, so a bit of experience in for one of the youngsters for the Demons.
Interesting, when I was coaching North Adelaide in the SNFL in 2011, 12 and 13, Jack Viney was going to Prince Alfred College here in South Australia, and he came out and did a pre-season. I think his dad had already moved back to Melbourne. He came and did a pre-season at North Adelaide. He was the most brutal, combative 17-year-old I've ever seen, to the point I actually had to say, Jack, you got to stop hurting the players. So not surprising that
he's fractured his hand at training.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. When you said that, I can see why he probably does it. He's a beauty.
They probably need a bit of that as well, a bit of mongrel in the middle just to really fight for contested footy. It's been an area that's faded against them over the last couple of weeks as well. So good to see him back there for the D's. On the text line 0437 774 774, DP's messaged in and says, fantastic point regarding long-term contracts. I wish Hawthorn had matched the Buddy deal in 2013 and made Sydney trade for him. We went from a hand that should have netted a minimum of 2 early first-round picks to getting pick 18 and losing the best player in the competition. Would love to see more clubs come out and match more of these deals. So that's around Zach Butters and whether or not Port Adelaide will match his free agency offer next year, which from all reports sounding like the way Chris Davies was talking earlier, they're going to do that. So they
Loved how he just dropped that in there.
He was very confident about their eagerness to retain him, but we've got a lot of time in between seasons, so we'll see what happens when it all plays out. And the way trade period goes these days, Tom, I feel like there's always a curveball. Someone who's never been on the radar gets thrown in, and all of a sudden the dominoes fall.
They certainly do. It's an interesting point from the text line, because you had players, Gary Ablett and Buddy Franklin, who would have left maybe not consecutive years from their clubs, who were very successful, but would arguably be in the top 3 or 4 best players of the last 25 years, generational players, and they went for pick 14, pick 15 because Geelong and Hawthorn were so good. There should be a system where you can say, or we can all vote that this guy is a genuine superstar of the competition in his absolute prime. I know Geelong and Hawthorn were dominating at the time. It's pick 1. They just have to be put on the top because they are such good players, and to lose them for a mid-range first-round pick is diabolical, really.
It's the herbs and spices just don't seem to match up, do they, Tom, at times? Great to have you with us on ABC Sport for Port Adelaide and Melbourne. Scott Thompson, Josh Franco, your experts this afternoon. And later today, 6 Eastern, we're going to take you to Perth Stadium for West Coast and Carlton to wrap up round 14. The D's are about to make their way out onto Adelaide Oval, a record of 5-8 after their 1-point loss against Collingwood on Monday. Awkward record here at the Adelaide Oval. They've won 2 of their last 5, but against Port Adelaide 4 of their last 6, and did win against them in round 3 last year. A 7-point victory over the Power. We heard from the head of football, Chris Davies, from Port Adelaide a moment's time ago. Let's head into the Melbourne camp because Josh Franco is downstairs with Alan Richardson.
Well, thank you, Aaron, and thanks, Alan, for your time on ABC Sport. How much of a boost has the group got this week, knowing you've got one Cozzy Pickett in your club for the next 9 years?
It's always good when you can plan. I mean, that's to have someone locked away of Cozzy's ability, a person that we think is an elite forward and is building towards becoming elite mid is fantastic for our group. And as I said, from a planning point of view, we know he's going to be there, and we can make decisions to complement from a list perspective around that. So no, it's brilliant news.
How do you balance the disappointment of Monday from a result point of view, but the performance knowing you took it right up to one of the real contenders?
Yeah, no, it was. It's a bit of all of that. It was really strong performance, but why did we not quite get there? We had chances and didn't quite execute when it mattered most, and that's right at the end of the game. But for big parts of the game, we thought we did a really good job. Our second quarter in particular, the quarter that we probably got beaten by the most on the scoreboard, was probably our best quarter, and that's been a bit of a challenge for us. We can be quite dominant but not get scoreboard pressure on, and so it's certainly a work in progress for us.
The scenes at the end of the game between Max and Stephen's been well spoken about. I know that Simon said he spoke to the group about it. How have you addressed it as a club?
Just firstly with the two lads to make sure that there's no ill feeling there and that they were able to move on pretty quick, and that was fine. And then just to the group, basically that it's not a great look for us. We certainly we want to be able to be open and honest, but at the end of the game, when it's emotional, just pick your time. And so no, that was the coach did a really good job with that with the rest of the group.
Here's Scott Thompson and Josh Ranko.
Hello.
Hey lads.
Alan, Josh Ranko here. Sorry, my mic wasn't working then. Apologies for that. Good luck today. Just a quick question, and following on from that question from Josh just then and around the Gawn and Stephen May incident. Obviously, there's been a fair bit of external narrative over the journey around the Melbourne Football Club. Just wondering how you keep the group and the playing group focused on the job at hand, which is obviously winning games of footy.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Josh, what happens externally is not always what's going on internally, and so there's generally a fair gap there. Have we had some things we have to work through? Of course we have, and we're just as transparent as we can be internally, and make sure we work through what's really important. And to go back over that question there, we want our guys to want to win. We know that it's an emotional game. You just got to pick your mark when you give your feedback. But then if it is you don't get that right, then you just address it, and that's what we've done. And look, turning your attention and our attention to today's game, Port Adelaide, how do you see their strengths, their weaknesses, and areas that you can potentially exploit them? Look, we know that they can be brilliant in and around the midfield. They're when you get Rosie and Butters and the speed and the class. That's bloody hard to beat. That's certainly been a challenge for us in the past in our performances against them. They've got a really, really strong method of defence. It is hard for teams to get out, particularly on this deck. This deck's a skinnier ground, not unlike Geelong, and so that presents some challenges. But the way they defend, when you add that to the ground size, it's really difficult to get from the back, if you like, to the front, and so you've got to have your fair share of stoppages. So that's probably the biggest theme for us, to make sure we get our share of the ball going forward from stoppage.
Alan, Scott Thompson, mate, how you going?
Good, thanks, Scott.
That's the way, mate. Scoring has been tough this year throughout the first half of the year, and Harrison Petty's gone forward. So how are you locking the structure up with lack of tall forwards and them, the big guys, not hitting the scoreboard probably the way you would like throughout the first half of the season?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything, Scott. It's not just about the forwards, it's about the way we use the ball going in, and it's been a real work in progress. We've had some pretty good results in recent times. The Sydney game, and we acknowledge Sydney perhaps are not at their best, but 130 points. We scored pretty well against Brisbane up there, and we know how hard to beat they are up on their home deck the week prior to that. So over this last 6-week period, it's been much better. Pets gives us enormous aerial contest. Van Ruin's just come back into the team, after some, going back and getting some form at VFL level, and we'd expect his performance to build again this week. But most of our scoring comes from others. We know that, but as long as those big guys can give us some real contest, and we continue to work on the way that we, get more quality entries, that's really been what we've been looking to do.
Melbourne's GM of football performance, Alan Richardson, with us on ABC Sport in the build-up to the Power and the Ds. Richo, it's Aaron Bryant's here. I've got to ask you about the lockdown roles you've been using over the last couple of games. So Jake Melksham did a pretty good job on Darcy Moore, and then we got to see the Ed Langdon tag on Nick Dacos. Is that something you're going to persist with for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, it's horses for courses, but no, we do like that. We like what it does from a messaging point of view. We like to hunt the opposition, and if you go after one of those, that can certainly add to that. From a just the philosophy of our team is to be aggressive and get after them, and we know that there's a few that you could pick from in this team today. So we'll continue to do that, whether it is a rebounding defender or an intercept defender or or just a midfield that might dominate, from a clearance field position perspective.
And you spoke about the external narrative not really matching what's happening inside the four walls. Simon Goodwin's spoken a lot about using love to overcome adversity and rediscovering that chemistry. What is it like with the team right now? Do you feel like they're all in sync and they all love each other and it's all back to your best football inside?
Yeah, it's a difficult, when you just hear the word love, I mean, there's a fair bit that means within. It's about loving the contest and loving working hard for your team, all of that. So it becomes a bit more footy-fied than just talking about love. But, our group's really close. They're really connected. We obviously had some stuff that we needed to work through in pre-season, so it's been a real focus. And I'd question anyone really to have a look at our performances and say that our players don't play for each other and care for each other and look after each other. So, that just from that perspective, that stuff's going really well.
Richo, thanks for your time and best of luck against the Power this afternoon.
Good on you, lads. Thanks for that.
Great to have the GM of football at Melbourne, Alan Richardson, in the build-up to the Power and the D's at the Adelaide Oval. Melbourne break through the banner. Max Gawn full stride here at the Adelaide Oval after a tumultuous week in the headlines for the wrong reasons after his clash with Stephen May. But he decided to own it as he's done in the past. He's a true leader of this football club. Whether he was in the wrong or not, he tends to put himself on the line and jump on the grenade for this football club. And be excited about this afternoon. He's got a good history against Port Adelaide. In the last two games in 2024, he had a combined 80 hit-outs and 3 Brownlow votes. He's got Jordan Sweet and Dante Vicentini to deal with this afternoon. No late changes. Hugh Jackson and Xavier Lindsay are the subs. So Jordan Sweet and Jason Horne-Francis return for the Power. Manny Liddy's in on debut and Jack Viney back for the D's. It's always an awkward topic, isn't it, Josh Franco, Scott Thompson, about love and trying to discover chemistry in a football club that's had so much happen off field between Clayton Oliver's misbehaviours, Christian Petrarca's serious injury, all the questions around Simon Goodwin, and then not only what's happening on field and the playing group, but the external as well from a board level where they've had a replacement of president with Brad Green to Stephen Smith, and Paul Guerra is their new CEO, but he's yet to start. He won't jump in until September, so David Chippendale's currently been the interim. It's a lot of moving parts for a football club that's got all this stuff going on and is trying to achieve on field.
Yeah, externally there's been a huge amount of noise, and not even in recent times. It's been over an extended period now with the Melbourne Football Club, and the word love, which we've heard Simon Goodwin use right from the beginning of this year, where they stripped it back and said we're all about love, and then we heard Alan Richardson break it down a little bit more and basically suggest that it's not just the love for each other, but it's the love for everything we're trying to do with inside the four walls of the footy club, whether it be teammates, whether it be staff, whether it's a thirst and love for the contest and the way we want to play the game. So I'm sure inside those four walls, as Alan Richardson touched on, they're honing on love around the things that they know work for them as a footy club, and will hopefully get them back to where they think they're capable of being on the ladder. But externally, when you hear the word just love, you think, oh, well, that's just a bit wishy-washy, isn't it? That's not going to get you the wins that you need to compete at the top of the ladder.
Well, it's interesting as well when you use the word connection as well. Connection's probably one of those trendy words in the AFL that's been used for the last decade, 15 years. And I think when we played, Scotty, that connection just happened organically and it never got spoken about. So I think when a club comes out and they're actively promoting the connection and the love, then clearly, from my perspective, there's an issue internally with that, if they need to feel the need to promote that.
You're trying to toss glitter on poo. It's just like, it's not really working, but look, it's really sparkly, like it's okay.
And trying to convince everyone that, no, we're going well, but I don't know. It's a bit cynical, but...
Do you feel like they've underachieved then since the Premiership in 21? Because they had 2 straight sets exits, 14th last year. Should they have done better?
Well, interestingly enough, when you look at that 2021 side, and I remember clearly at the end of that grand final when they beat the Western Bulldogs, thinking that they could create a sort of a dynasty, just in terms of their list demographic and their list profile. And I reckon they've fallen off the face of the earth. I think they're massive underachievers. And I've always said that I think Melbourne are a little bit flaky over the last, over the last couple of years, but when you look at behind the ball, they look solid. Ahead of the ball is probably a weakness at the moment, but it always hasn't been. And when you look at their midfield, that's the envy of just about every other club, with Gawn leading the charge. I think they are massive underachievers.
Port Adelaide make their way out onto the Adelaide Oval. Fireworks and a full banner as well. The upper tiers a little bit patchy, but everywhere else looking like it's starting to fill up quite nicely for this Sunday afternoon fixture with the sun out on an overcast day. Not too much rain expected, but certainly going to be cold out there. So Port Adelaide, fresh off their win over the Giants, 16-point winners in Canberra. did defeat Melbourne in their last meeting at the MCG, the back end of season 2024, by just 2 points. Very close game. And the man behind it all who surged them over the line was Jason Horne-Francis. He didn't get any Brownlow votes, but had 9 touches in the final term to get them there. And he's back in Port Adelaide's colours this afternoon after missing a month with a hamstring injury. A huge addition to what is starting to be more of a star-studded lineup after a ton of injuries plaguing them through the campaign. So they're starting to build Tomo. It might be a little too late, but there's still hope mathematically they can get there.
Mathematically they can, absolutely. But I personal opinion, I think the season's too far gone for both these sides at 5 and 8. They're now both 3 games plus percentage outside of the top 8. But in saying that, it's a huge game for both clubs, where Port have spoken about their inconsistencies across the first half of the season, and not only inconsistent, some absolute thumpings over the first 10 rounds of this season. Yes, a nice win last week against probably an unperforming Giants side. So can they, and do they have the ability to string a couple of wins together? We'll wait and see. And as for Melbourne, you know, they should have won last week against Collingwood. They lost that game. Their inability to show composure and convert when they needed to late in the game cost them that game. And you touch on, back to Port, Jason Horne-Francis, who I believe is a huge barometer for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. The way he cracks in, and we've seen at times he can get a bit hot and bothered under the collar, but I just love the way he flies the flag. He plays the game the right way. His ability to be strong in the contest and show that burst out and bring other guys into the game is huge for the way Port Adelaide want to play. So it'd be fantastic to see him back out there and just add that bit more depth to their midfield again.
The numbers are very damning, Josh. So historical lows for the Port Adelaide Football Club. In terms of clearance differentials, they're worst under Ken Hinkley. Their average score is the worst in the AFL since they joined in 97. Time inside forward half, that used to be their best stat. They were top 3 for that. Now it's down in the bottom 8. Their points against, it's their highest leakage since 2012. So it's been a season to forget. Unfortunately, it's Ken Hinkley's last, and they're just trying their best to claw towards finals. But this is the time to do it. So you touched on Port Adelaide and Melbourne being in the same place, Tomo, on the ladder, but Port do have that game in hand because of the early bye. And the next couple of weeks open right up. They're all at home, Sydney, Carlton, and then you've got Brisbane and West Coast. So 3 of the next 4 certainly winnable, and you start to get a few on a roll, and the season's salvageable.
Well, it's interesting if you go back to Port Adelaide, and what I will say, I know there's been a huge amount of narrative around Ken Hinkley and the handover with Josh Carr, and has it worked, hasn't it worked? But what I will say about Ken Hinkley is he does have the ability to get the guys back just when you think they're absolutely gone and he's lost the playing group, a la the big losses that they've had in recent weeks. He does have that ability to find a spark within the playing group to get a reaction and a response from this Port Adelaide Footy Club. So he does have something unique in that regard, but those numbers that you just quoted then, Aaron, in terms of Port Adelaide, they're quite damning. From where they've come from previously, in previous seasons, to this season, yeah, quite damning.
Well, you talk about their midfield numbers and being so down as a statistical number through the middle of the ground. You reel off Butters, Rosie, Horne-Francis, arguably at their best right now, top 10 players in the league.
Yep.
Throw in Wines, who's a Brownlow medalist, and Bergman, who we're talking about, has got so much upside and potential in future years. That's a bunch of guys there that you think should be able to get it done in the middle. The only thing they're probably lacking is some actual ruck dominance. So for Port Adelaide, what are they doing wrong around the ball to have numbers as poor as what they are throughout the first half of this season?
That's a good question. Absolutely. Yeah, look, and it doesn't get easier today when you're coming up against the best 360 ruckman in Australia, and probably potentially has ever played the game in Max Gawn. His ability to get around the ground and hit to advantage at ground level to his mids. It doesn't get any easier for Port Adelaide today. But yeah, look, to your point, the numbers, the differential in clearances, that has traditionally been a strength of Port Adelaide, and as we said, it's fallen off a cliff.
Because the easy argument is the bookends aren't working, where defensively they haven't had the players same as up forward, and they're not scoring enough and they're leaking too much. But the midfield is where the talent has been, and the numbers aren't really supportive of them either.
Yeah.
So at all lines, they're really battling right now, which is odd for a Port Adelaide side led by Ken Hinkley.
And that's right. And the reality is, if the guys we've just touched on through the middle of the ground aren't getting their job done, and they can't get the ball going in their forward half, we've spoken about their lack of probably star power in their back half, so they will leak huge scores if the midfield aren't getting their hands on the ball.
Fun part about this afternoon, and we've touched on this a lot in the build-up, is these two sides are very even. So even though the numbers aren't great for them individually, when you put them together, they're pretty close in terms of the rankings across the board. And I think the most important part, and we've mentioned this a few times, is the scoring efficiency when they go inside 50. So your better teams like Adelaide, who are the best in the league for it, 28% of their inside 50s result in a goal. Collingwood's at 26. Both Port and Melbourne are down at 20. So they're struggling. And the Ds in particular, they don't have a tall forward in their top three goal kickers. So it's Pickett right now who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Bailey Fritsch is up there. And then you've got Christian Petrarca. So they're struggling right now with their tall timber. And Port Adelaide are solely relying on Mitch Georgiades because they haven't had a lot around it either. So it makes it an exciting contest. It's probably not great in the grand scheme of things, but this afternoon should be fun.
Well, that's why I was a little bit surprised they left Finlayson out, to be really honest with you. We spoke to Chris Davies, and there's some other stuff going on that the coaches weren't happy with, but I would have thought with not a lot of tall timber, with the capabilities either marking the ball or hitting the scoreboard, I thought he may have survived.
Gee, the wording was worrying there. Chris Davies, wasn't it? That once again this season they haven't been happy with his effort. And he's out of contract this year, Jeremy. And I don't know, you're right. This was the game to play him. And if he was that bad in Canberra that if they forced his hand and they've had to put Dante Vicentini up forward, then he's in stride.
Massive concern. And again, when you listen to Chris Davies, you talk about the inconsistencies and trying to iron them out. You turn to the contest and competitiveness, and if he's not fitting that mould, again, that's why he's out of the side. So, worrying signs for Jeremy.
Thoughts of Josh Franco, Scott Thompson, your experts this afternoon. 5 showdown medals between them, 2 All-Australian Blazers as well. You can get in touch on the text line 0437 774 774. Laurel's done that, says very excited to be listening to you again. Great to have you, Laurel. And it says very happy with the Cats win yesterday. Gee, it was enormous. Bailey Smith would have to be front runner for the Brownlow now. Even though he's missed a couple of games, every time he plays it feels like a 3-voter. So they're in tremendous nick, the Cats, right up there, the top end of the table. And love what we've seen so far from what they put on the park. Dean says around the average pay for players as well, that with the new deal coming in a couple of years' time, it should rise to 600,000. So currently 460,000 is the average. And Scott Thompson just shakes his head. Can you share publicly, do you ever remember what you were on at Max?
At Max, nowhere near what the blokes that have been talking about today getting paid. Unfortunately.
News of the week was Kazai Pickett signed a 9-year deal worth $12 million. It's massive, and the longest contract deal in the AFL right now. And if you're trying to argue against it, he'll be 33 when it ends. So it's huge in terms of the deal. The news of today, if you missed it earlier on the Footy Forum or as part of Sunday AFL, is the sad news coming out of the Brisbane Lions camp that Jack Payne has ruptured his patella tendon. So confirmation from the club, as speculated yesterday, that he will miss the remainder of 2025 with a ruptured patella tendon, which is a massive blow for a premiership contender who've lost Joe Danaher in the off-season at one end and now Jack Payne's out at the other, and it's a big blow for their tall stocks down in defence. So thoughts are with Jack, who'll miss a lot of footy and hopefully can come back next year and continue to play for the Brisbane Lions, because he was in ripping form as well. 0437 774 774, that text line. No late changes. Hugh Jackson, the sub for the Power. Xavier Lindsay for the Ds. Should talk about Manny Liddy a little bit, because he's a very exciting player. Mid-season pick-up for Port Adelaide. They copped a lot of criticism at the time for their 3 selections. Tom, many felt that they were just trying to bolster their Magpies side in the SANFL that hadn't won a lot of games. Dean Brogan mentioned, I think a week after it happened, no, they're very bullish about Manny Liddy and what he can do, and here he is this afternoon playing league footy and not even starting as the sub either.
It's a remarkable story. 2 weeks ago, he's playing at Central District. Chris Davies talked about how he was at Sturt and then he went to Central Districts for a better opportunity. He also had that weird injury where he got spiked, stabbed by a boot, and got an infection there. So that's why he's wearing a long sleeve on his leg to protect that, because the scar's still pretty weak underneath. But to step up from that level, and I guess that just shows you how good the SANFL is as a competition, but to step up 2 weeks later into a team that still believes that it's contending straight onto the field as well, not even as the sub, it's a great message to just stick at it, isn't it? I mean, just because you don't get drafted doesn't mean you're the final player at age 18 or 19.
It's everything we want the mid-season draft to be, is it? Second opportunities.
It certainly is, and it is remarkable with some of these guys that have done it over the years. You look at like John Noble now at the Gold Coast and how well he's slotted into AFL footy, and Petty today. The guys spend months over summer talking about structure and the way we want to play, and we see these guys roll in and a week and a half later they're playing AFL footy.
We're ready to go here for Port Adelaide and Melbourne on ABC Sport. Great to have you with us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Josh Money's been downstairs in the build-up and he's ready to go after the coin toss. Josh, how's it like down there?
Pretty good conditions, really. A beautiful sunny day, a little bit fresh, 14 degrees, Aaron, but clear skies and great conditions for footy. Connor Rosie has just won the toss and Port Adelaide will kick to the southern end of the ground. There is a slight breeze, so that's probably why he's opted to do that. Now, Ed Langdon, we saw the job he did on Nick Dacos last week, warmed up with the forwards. Could he be starting on Connor Rosie? That's one to watch. Let's look at the bench. Josh Sin, Willem Drew, Joe Richards and Manny Liddy, the great story, starting on the bench for Port. Hugh Jackson is their sub, Blake Howes, Trent Rivers, Kate Chandler, Jacob Van Rooyen on the bench for Melbourne, Xavier Lindsay, their starting sub.
Round 14 action on ABC Sport. Port Adelaide and Melbourne looking to keep their season alive. The loser will be in the bottom four. Tom Wilson to get us going at the Adelaide Oval.
Josh was on the money there. Ed Langdon straight to Connor Rosie at centre half back, so one to watch out for.
Looks like Bergman's got the job on Petrarca as well in the middle of the ground.
Ball in the middle, Gawn versus Visentini. Visentini gets a hand on it. Bergman in front of Petrarca, soccers it forward. Darcy Byrne-Jones picks it up, gets a handball forward, goes through the legs of Visentini. Petrarca for Melbourne grabs it at centre half back, kicks a high ball towards Sparrow, fisted away by Farrell. Centre wing for Port Adelaide. Looks like Farrell may have hurt himself in that contest. Keep an eye on that one. In the meantime, Max Gawn goes inside the forward 50 towards the top of the goal square. One-handed effort there on the goal line and almost sockered through by Melksham, but it was Fritsch who got one-handed. It almost took the mark minus score. Melbourne first to score of the game.
Good news for Kane Farrell staying out there. I think his foot just got planted in the turf and almost jarred his knee. Just shook it off and kept going. D's by a point early. Willie Rioli has it at right half back. Kicks very heavy for Bergman over his head and out the back door. Turner to Pickett. Hollywood handball from the $1 million man. Central to Bowie. And a kick across to Windsor. Wheels through the centre circle and out to the eastern side. Here's Sparrow, the South Adelaide product. One of 4 Adelaide-based Demons this afternoon. Plays on in front of the Bashir stand and sends Melbourne inside 50. It'll land in front of the scoreboard. Big rise from Melksham over the top of Radaglia. Couldn't reel it in. Out the back is Bergman. Heads for a run across the goal face and exits to the broadcast wing.
Looking for Georgiades, who worked his opponent under the footy beautifully. Plays on quickly, kicks over the top to Horn Francis. One bounce, runs towards 50, takes a second, settles himself, goes for home and hits the post. On the left-hand woodwork. What a play it was. What a transition from the power minus score in the end. We're all locked away. 1.5 minutes gone.
Well, it was outstanding transition. The mark there on the bodywork from Georgiades potentially could have been a push in the back, but got away with it. Horn Francis just had to finish off his good work.
Scores level at a behind a piece. The D's head to the eastern wing. Langdon takes the mark against Connor Rosie, then breaks away from him quickly. Over the top through the logo, puts it in the path of Viney. Radaglia coming the other way. Clash of bodies. Ball pops towards half forward. Petrarca out to meet it. Couldn't get low enough. Desperation from Radaglia. Paddles it to Rosie, who arches the back and surges up the spine. Combines with Robin de Butters into the 50. It bounces towards Horn Francis. Clean take. Time to settle. Screw the kick central. And diving low is sweet. It wasn't 15. They've dived on top of him after he took the low slips catch. And we'll get a ball up, 25 out.
Gee whiz, I thought he was a bit stiff on that account. I thought the ball might have hit the ground, but it didn't. You're right, Aaron. He didn't pay the 15-metre kick.
Sweet doing the ruck work in the forward line, but Melbourne win it out. Kicking it was Windsor towards the space. In a foot race, we've got Burton and Fritsch. Fritsch sharked him. And handballs, he's got the run nicely and some help from his teammates in Langdon, but he's wrapped up quickly by Farrell. Ball's on centre wing. Pickett wraps up Mead, holding the footy, says the umpire. Incorrect disposal. Melbourne quickly take advantage. Clayton Oliver goes to Fritsch, true centre wing. He goes inside the forward 50.
High ball 2-on-2. Dropped a little shallow in the end, and Melksham charges out to meet it. On the bounce, thrusts a handball forward, trying to get it to Petrarca. Cut off by Bergman, and he's wrapped up by the Norm Smith medalist. Ball up to come. Scores a level at a behind a piece on ABC Sport.
I know we've only played 3 minutes of actual game time, but it seems quite open at the moment, Scotty. Doesn't it? Some good transition of ball movement from both teams.
Visentini knocks it straight to Fritsch, who has a flying shot on goal. The right side, or the wrong side, in fact, for a left footer in the left forward pocket. Away to the left, minus score. Melbourne go to 2 behinds. Port have the 1. 3 minutes and 45 seconds gone in this first term.
Mentioned the crowd was building, but the hill is very patchy this afternoon, so it won't be pushing towards the 40,000 mark, you'd think. Exiting kick from Port Adelaide. Burn-Jones, low to ground, gathers and hands it to Vicentini. Now Palpepper plays on, dukes it off towards Burn-Jones, back into the 50 after setting it up. Just couldn't hit on Francis. Good positioning by Daniel Turner, who's flipped from forward to back the last month and feels right at home, averaging 7 intercepts across their last 5. The Demon sends it back to the broadcast wing. Gawn's there and clunks the contested grab.
He's going to be huge, Gawn. That there should have come to ground absolutely 100% of the time, but he stood there uncontested almost in the end and marked that ball.
Too strong. Hands it off to Bowie, who kicks down the line. Radigalia forces his opponent under the ball, and that was Melksham, who's not happy about it.
No, I wouldn't be either. I thought there was definitely 2 hands in the back there from the big defender.
The umpire was in the right position, but just didn't see it, because I think we all saw that one. Radigalia, right half back, kicks it back down the line. Bit of kick-to-kick going on. Port's 2 ruckmen are there, but it's fisted away at the back. Goes through the hands of Langford. He was tackled by Richards. Got it to Salem just in time. But his handball goes to Sin from Port Adelaide, to Mead, to Radigalia, to the big sweep on the boundary. Handballed it to the ruckman, who was taken out over the line there by Langford. And we'll have a ball up. Let's get down to Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Tom, looks like a double tag for the D, so we know Langdon's with Rosie, but Jack Viney, the returning former captain, also wearing Zach Butters very, very closely.
D's by a point. Toss back in on ABC Sport. Gawn dispatches Vicentini with ease, takes the footy and hands it to Petrarca. Now Fritsch, soft to Langford, full stride. It's a beautiful chain into the 50. Petty couldn't mark. Front and square was Melksham, though. Hands it across. Langdon snaps, curls and goals.
Touched.
Off the boot, through. So it'll be a minus score. 3 behinds for the Demons. 1 point for the Power. So no one yet to kick a major. And we've travelled 5 minutes here at the Adelaide Oval. Sunday footy on ABC Sport.
Would have hurt being the tagging role against Rosie. Getting one against it. Liddy was there onto the field. Ball was knocked away. Gathered by Viney. Handballs it across to Langford, who kicks on the left foot, going for home. But working under his opponent nicely there was Ryan Burton on Melksham. Takes intercept mark, and Melksham didn't stand on the mark properly, so it's going to be 50 metres.
Just looking at Liddy run around, obviously his first taste of AFL footy. I wonder who the last number 50 was to play a game.
It's a heavy number, isn't it?
It's a big number, isn't it?
Cam Sutcliffe and Tyson Goldsack both had the number 50.
Wow, there you go.
So they presented him with his Guernsey, or at least announced his debut during the week. Kick up to the eastern side is Richards, the former Magpie. Central perfectly placed to Wines over the top of Oliver. He'll release Bergman, spots a target into the 50 and puts it out in the path of Georgiades, who takes the mark 25 from home on a 45-degree angle to the right.
Well, tell you what, Scotty, that's Port Adelaide at its absolute best. They have that thirst. It's in their DNA to come back through the middle of the ground, and that little 45 kick back through the corridor from Richard just opened up the forward 50. Really good play there from Port Adelaide.
Yeah, the execution piece was outstanding.
Yep.
What I still struggle with is that 50-metre penalty that sets up that play initially. The stand the mark rule just frustrates the absolute life out of me.
Too big a penalty.
Mitch Georgiades, the club's leading goal scorer this season, 25-18. Very slow approach, gets close to the man on the mark, but just squeezes it through. Port strike first. It took 7 minutes for one of these sides to kick a goal. The Power 1-1-7, the D's 3 behinds. It's Sunday footy on ABC Sport with all Australian midfielders Scott Thompson and Josh Franco.
Well, Scotty, already looking at the way Port Adelaide want to play the game, and we know, as we just said, it's in their DNA to come back through the middle of the ground. We saw a miss early on in this first quarter from Junior Rioli, but that kick there from Richards was outstanding. They do look to come back through the corridor at every opportunity, and that's a big focus area, no doubt, for Melbourne coming into this contest. They need to clog it up, get numbers in the corridor, force Port Adelaide wide, so they can't get opened up going forward.
And Georgiades, great start to the game. We spoke prior to the game of his importance to the team, and again, strong, dominant, contested mark on the wing, and then his ability then to bit of forward craft to get on the end of it, and a beautiful finish.
Matty Liddy's straight into the midfield. We called him earlier, but he's in there starting for. Sweet up against Gawn, knocks it down. Cozzy Pickett gathers, runs around on his left foot, kicks towards centre half forward where Oliver has slid forward, takes the mark in front of Rosie. Goes inside the forward 50, looking for Petty. Too much on it. I was looking for Van Rooyen, in fact, but Radaglia takes another intercept mark.
He started all right, the big fella Radaglia, hasn't he?
Just using his body on the smaller targets. Wide to Farrell and then back across the goal face to Burgoyne. Scott Thompson points to the targets on the eastern wing. Burgoyne heads in that direction, but the wrong side of the paint to Willie Rioli. Out of the full.
Burgoyne had moved that far faster than he did.
Quick entrance from the Demons. Sparrow to Pickett. Lowers the eyes and shares it to Van Rooyen. Charging out in front of the scoreboard. It's a tight angle 30 from home, but a set shot incoming for the D's.
I'll tell you what, obviously, because Pickett signed the big multi-million-dollar contract, but his addition to the midfield at Melbourne has been superb, in my opinion. I reckon they look a little bit top-heavy, a little bit slow, potentially, and he adds a lot of speed around the midfield of Melbourne at ground level, and already being influential with 3 touches.
Goalless in his last 3, Jacob Van Rooyen. This will test him. Tight angle. Tries to thread the needle. He's done a brilliant job. Van Rooyen snaps the drought with a bit of class. And the D's snatch the lead straight back. 139 to Port Adelaide's 117. 9 played opening terms. Sunday footy on ABC Sport.
Port Adelaide were out there. So Burgoyne takes that mark. I understand he's deep in their D50, but he had the ability then just to wheel and go. And I think Rioli had about 20 to 30 metres of space out on the wing, and just the execution piece fell apart, which then enabled Melbourne to go back inside 50 and execute on goal.
And even just looking at some of the numbers, we spoke about Port Adelaide have been poor in terms of clearances. At the moment, it's 5-zip in favour of Melbourne, but 4-zip in favour of hit-outs, Port Adelaide. So they're getting their hands on the footy, but just can't get any clearances and field position off the stoppages at the moment, the power.
7 inside 50s to 4 as well, Melbourne's way. We've got a 2-point lead. Third of the way through this first quarter. Back in the middle of the ground. Umpire bounces the ball. Van Rooyen after kicking the goal up against Sweet. Sweet knocks it down, gathered by Bergman. A floating handball back to the ruckman, who gets a little bit too much purchase on it to Richards, but he's able to run onto it. Handballs to Rioli, doing it all by hand to Sam Powell-Pepper. Tries to get back on his right boot, inboard to Rioli by hand, who looked to get one high potentially. But play on, says the umpire, and will have a ball up 25 metres out just around from their goal.
D's by 2. Port on the press. Tossed up. Vicentini down. Sharped. Rivers gets the exit around the body up towards the eastern wing. Melksham presents. Knocked away from him. Front square. Pickett dancing and dodging. Missed the handball late under pressure. McVie now ripped away by Rosie around the body. A hit and hope. Back into the 50, and Stephen May drops low to cut it off. Kick has to be precise as he swings it across 2 power players. Hits McVie, and now out towards the broadcast wing to Langford. This is very good transition from the Demons, heading end to end. Chandler Marks, the Norwood product. He's just behind left half forward, and that momentum will come to a halt. Fritsch now comes riding shotgun, gets the assist, and kicks inside 50. Petty flies from the back, couldn't control it. Radaglia dives low, no one to hand it to. Melksham jumps on top of him. The umpire gives him the benefit of the doubt. Ball up, 25 out.
Geez, Petrarca was calling for that ball in fast when Chandler had it on the wing. He was one out with Bergman and just pointing advantage side, and he didn't see him.
Van Rooyen and Sweet. Sweet knocks it down. Bergman, can he gather? He does. Wrapped up immediately by Petrarca. And so we'll have another ball up 20 metres around from Melbourne's goal. Umpire chucks it up. Back position was Sweet. Just grabbed it out of the air. Stripped. He was stripped by Cozzy Pickett, who then did the 1-2 and then ran on and kicked the goal. Genius stuff from the $1 million man that we're going to be talking about. But he certainly earned his dough there. Melbourne 2-3-15. Port Adelaide 1-1-7. 13 minutes gone first term.
Well, I tell you what, if he can keep doing that, I reckon they've got him cheap. Just his ability to hit through the stoppage. He's so difficult to defend in that scenario when there's numbers around the ball, and he can use screen and he can get on the fly. Obviously, you spend a lot of time as a midfielder, Scotty. You need help from your direct teammates to be able to get some body on a player like that, because if you give him any sort of leg rope, he's going to take advantage of it, as he did on that occasion.
Yeah, great goal there, and it's the movement you talk about, and the reason he's so hard to match up on around the contest is his lateral movement and burst speed out of a contest is elite.
Talk to Scott Thompson, Josh Franco on ABC Sport. The D's now with a game-high 8-point lead after an inaccurate start. Took 7 minutes for the first goal. Great to have you with us for the call.
Also, just another one too, Aaron. Zach Butter's been held by Viney at the moment, just the one disposal. So needs to get going, Zach Butters, for Port Adelaide's sake.
Manny Liddy yet to get a touch as well on the number 50 on debut. On the text line, Catherine says Marlon Pickett wore number 50 for Richmond, and Brendan and Hobart reminding us of Ben Brown as well.
Oh, cool.
Speaking of former Demons, beautiful bounce in the middle. Cutting across Van Rooyen, wins it down against Sweet. Bounces to Burgoyne off the wing. Tackled by Chandler and gives it away. Rivers hands it to Viney. Spear and kick into the 50. Radaglia again. Read it immediately, pushed off his man and took the intercept mark. Shares it wide to Burt.
He's at right half back for Port Adelaide. Risky ball inside.
That's the one they want, isn't it?
But it was perfectly placed to Sin. So the switch is on out to Mead, who's defensive side of centre wing, outer side of the ground. He's going to work his way back to Farrell at left half back. So they switch it back to Radaglia. He's at right half back. Kicking long towards Sweet. Got Van Rooyen in company. Van Rooyen brought it to ground. Rode by Chandler. Handball's inboard to Rivers. He was under pressure when he got the handball to Salem. So too was Salem, and he missed the target in Van Rooyen. Fritsch gathers though. Handballs towards Rivers and Sweet, the two 24s. Port Adelaide have the numbers if they can think their way through. Wines goes to Liddy, who gets his first touch, and Burton kicks a beautiful ball to centre half forward where Horne-Francis marks. Rioli was free in the pocket, he just couldn't get it there, so it goes short and finds Georgiades, who marks probably 40 metres out on a 45-degree angle.
Josh, that's exactly what you're talking about. That kick from Burton back inside at centre half forward to an uncontested player sets up the whole field. There was a build-up prior to that where they switched and Radaglia goes long to the contest, which probably isn't the play they want, but that sharp hand out of contest hit Burton inside 50.
So another opportunity here for Georgiades. Kick Port's first of the match. In comes Mitch. Good connection just away to the right-hand side, so it's a minor score. Port Adelaide 1-2-8, Melbourne 2-3-15. We're halfway through this first term.
Just in terms of the execution of the kick as well, he kicked it on the outside of his foot, didn't he? Didn't use his opposite. It's a superb kick.
Maida Bowie in the left back pocket. D's kicking to the left-hand side of your radio dial. Up towards the broadcast wing. Gawn rises above the pack. Can't claim it, but knocked it straight down to Pickett again. He's been everywhere.
Yep.
Central kick to Rivers. Here they come on the surge. Langdon goes for a run up to half forward. Drives it hard towards the goal square. Fritsch uses the body. Couldn't claim it. Petty fumbles as he was running into goal. And Burton can have scored it through. They nearly forced that over the line. And in the end, it's a minor score. The D's back up by 8 on ABC Sport.
Yeah, Cozzy Pickett causing Port Adelaide all sorts of headaches at the moment. 6 disposals, 4 and 2 at 100% kicking efficiency. Looking very dangerous. Port Adelaide at the moment, the midfielders just can't go with him in transition.
Burton went short to Drew, who went short again to Ollie Wines. He's at centre half back. Lowers the eyes, finds Mead. Plays on quickly towards centre wing. Sweet. Runs around on the right foot, kicking up towards right half forward where Powell Pepper was, who came in hard in the contest. Strong contest. Knocked over his Melbourne opponent in Turner, who is taking his time to get up, still on his haunches at right half back, or right half forward, or left half back for Melbourne.
Ooh. Pickett's just come off for a rest. I wouldn't mind seeing Butters try and roll over to Pickett and either create a 2v1 with Viney in his back pocket at the moment, inject himself into the game that way, where Pickett's having huge impact. He's getting a lot of contests. Butters needs to inject himself into the game.
Tell you what, I just saw the collision of Powell Pepper v Turner, and that was definitely a head knock.
I'm shocked he's staying out there. Both trainers came to check on him. He took a long time to get to his feet.
Yep.
Tossed in. Gawn wins it down. Langford hands it to Bowie. Looping handball over the top to Oliver. Turned into trouble from Burgoyne. Got a handball out though. Did well. Langford back to the boundary line. Salem to Oliver. They're doing well with the walls closing in. Kick up towards the logo. Petty battling there. Couldn't control it against Sin. Knocked down towards Liddy. Handball across to Burton. And then Butters, central kick, works well to Mead. So that incident, the back of Powell Pepper's almost elbow has accidentally caught him in that spoil, and then he's landed headfirst on the turf as well. So double collision to Turner, and he's still out there. Aaliyah down the line. Gawn nearly cut it off. It bounced straight off his chest. The D's now have the footy on the eastern side.
It's a short ball. Didn't have enough on it because it was intercepted by Elia. He goes short to Butters, who's starting to work his way into the game. To Farrell. He's in the centre square. The switch is on to Sin. He's got some running support if he wants it through Burgoyne. Goes to right half forward, who goes over the top and finds Jason Horne-Francis. Right half forward. It is a tough angle, 45 metres out.
Well, I know we haven't played a huge amount of the game, only 13 minutes of this first quarter, but it almost seems Port Adelaide, they don't want to go forward when they've got numbers behind the ball with a long kick, because they've got the interceptors down there in Lever and May. So they're very methodical in how they want to move the ball inside their forward 50, at times double switching and looking for a better connection inside their forward 50, as they did on that occasion.
Hit the post earlier, did Jason Horne-Francis, who would take an amazing kick. It looked good for a while there, but just drifted away to the right-hand side. So another minus score for Port, 139. Melbourne 2-4-16, 19.5 gone. Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Tom, the Melbourne Docs are looking at the vision of that incident between Turner and Powell-Pepper, so there may still be some action taken there.
I'd be staggered if there isn't.
D's by 7. May plays on again from the defensive goal square. And wide to Disco. Turner kicks up to the eastern side. Looking for Petty, 2 to beat, brought it down. Again, the D's have numbers at the 4, the footy. Viney to Sparrow, paddles it towards Langdon. Beautiful spin out of trouble, and then sweeps the handball to Viney. Liddy tackles him, ball pops out. Sparrow couldn't control it, Horne-Francis can. Links up with Aaliyah. Now the All-Australian defender pops it short to Richards. Port Adelaide with the footy at half-back, trailing by 7. Richards spots Powell-Pepper on the logo broadcast wing.
This is where they're quite methodical.
Inboard to Butters, hands it to Burton with a 1-2. Butters has got it back centre wing. There's really no one to kick to. He missed the target and it worked out well because Gawn dropped the mark. Horne-Francis, can he be third time lucky? No! A third behind for Jason Horne-Francis in his return game. Port 1-4-10, Melbourne 2-4-16, 20.5 minutes gone. That dump kick inside the forward 50 was a 3-on-1 in favour of Melbourne, but somehow Port ended up with it but couldn't capitalise.
Two of the most inaccurate sides in the comp this afternoon, so it's playing out as expected. That was a very poor kick at a defensive 50 for the D's. It's gone straight down the throat of Darcy Byrne-Jones, who'll get a set shot, 45 out, tight angle to the right. Jake Bowie, the offender, who gave it away.
Well, if you looked up the word clanger, that was probably the best example of it. That was an absolute howler, wasn't it? One I'm sure he'd like back.
Byrne-Jones with a couple of points in Canberra, would love to hit between the big sticks this time. Opens up the angle, starts right, it's curling back, Darcy Byrne-Jones. 2-point game at the Adelaide Oval. The Power move to 2-4-16. I should say it's scores are level, 2-4-16 apiece at the Adelaide Oval. Great to have you with us in the opening term. We've just hit time on for Sunday footy on ABC Sport. Scott Thompson, Josh Franco, your experts.
Well, what should have been an uncontested mark to Gawn. There was a communication breakdown initially. Horne-Francis obviously kicks the point, but you mentioned the clanger, Josh, coming back in. That's just inexcusable, that kick.
And just looking again at some of the numbers, the clearance count, it's 9-1 in favour of Melbourne. The tackle count, the contested ball numbers, well in favour of Melbourne. And as we said, Port Adelaide, the way they're looking to move the ball, and clearly they don't want to bomb the ball in with guys like Lever and May and even Gawn that does fold back and give aerial support. They're very methodical in the way that they're kicking the ball inside their forward 50. And at the moment it's working. They're looking dangerous inside their forward 50 every time they connect.
Josh Money on the boundary.
Tom, so after a closer inspection, the Melbourne doctors have now gone and got Daniel Turner. He's gone straight down to the rooms for a concussion test. Ollie Wines also having his left knee looked at on the Port bench.
So from the centre bounce, Gawn knocked it down. Gone about 15 metres forward where Oliver and Zach Butters scrap for it. And we'll have a ball up.
That's their first hit out of the game, Melbourne, believe it or not.
It's remarkable. So Visentini back in there. Gawn gets another hit out, knocks it towards Aaliyah though at centre half back. He dropped the footy. Overrunning it was Sparrow. Melbourne just trying to shuffle this ball forward. Port keen to keep it in and they managed to do so. So we'll have another ball up just to the right of centre half forward for Melbourne. Scores are locked away 2-4 apiece.
Just the two lead changes so far this term. Gawn down to Oliver, off a step, bangs it into the 50. It's a tumbler for Melksham. Out with the assist is Chandler. He's bowled over by his teammate. Ripped out by Ratugolea. Hands it to Butters. Caught in the tackle. Did well to get it to Rosie. Overhead, he loops it towards Drew. The superstars are all combining. Horne-Francis now up the eastern wing. Spears the pass to Liddy. The roar from the fans in the sun on the eastern side. Good kick towards Drew, then Burgoyne, then moving the ball at pace here. Richards behind half forward, chips it over the top, and the mark taken by Bergman. End to end for Port Adelaide. Set shot incoming, 40 out.
Two different styles, isn't it, going forward? Like Melbourne's a lot of surge, contest ball, where Port get it. And Josh, you've already touched on the fact they had really good method, but their use by foot then to break Melbourne wide open is really hard for the Demons to defend. And now they're getting a good look forward to centre with that movement.
Worth noting, it's not a lot of pace either. It's just good ball movement.
Yeah.
Bergman starts in the centre square. Straight line to goal. Kicks from just inside the arc. Plenty of power. And he puts it through with a monster kick. Bergman's on the board. Port Adelaide back in front. 3-4-22 to 2-4-16. Still 4 minutes to go in this opening term. Sunday footy on ABC Sport with a combined 5 showdown medals. It's Josh Franco and Scott Thompson.
And further to that, Scotty, as we said, Port Adelaide are looking to kick mark their way through Melbourne's defence, but on that occasion it was the first gamer in Liddy, just that look inside, beautifully weighted kick, and when you're able to hit that 45 back through the middle of the ground, it just opens up all of the forward 50s it did on that occasion for Port Adelaide. And at the moment, the way they're playing, they don't want to bomb and surge the ball forward, a high ball inside their forward 50. They're looking to, as I said, kick mark and try to dice their way through Melbourne's defence. But again, from Melbourne's perspective, they've got to be really tuned into. That's the way that Port Adelaide want to play and deny them the corridor.
Josh Money.
Yeah, Tom, that left knee of Ollie Wine's clearly enough of a cause for concern that he's now gone into the Port rooms. Daniel Turner's still in the Melbourne rooms as well, so both teams down to 3 players on the bench for the time being.
An error and bounce there from the umpire, so he'll get it back and we'll do it all again. So Port Adelaide, last 2 goals of the game to take a 6-point lead. Visentini up against Gawn. Gawn knocks it down. Bergman's in there. Well done there from Rivers, who gets a Devine. He kicks inside the forward 50. Flying over the top was Zirk Thatcher. Roved cleverly by Farrell. His handball made Burton work for it, so he just dumps it with a snap kick out of D50. And underneath it is Cozzy Pickett. He marks it left half forward for Melbourne. Kicks to a dangerous spot. Radaglia.
That's probably the difference, isn't it? Huge difference, and Radaglia has been brilliant early on.
That's his 6th intercept of the quarter. Sava Radaglia. Kick casual across to Alia.
And this is the offensive build-up we've seen throughout the first half of the first quarter.
Kicking efficiency would be through the roof. Alia up to the broadcast swing. He's looking for Vicentini. Front position, sweet. Floats across the pack. Juggles the mark. Up to right half forward with his kick. Over the top of Georgiades. At the back, though, was Rioli. Hands it to his big man. Caught in the tackle from Howes and gave it away. Pickett for the D's. Wide to Howes. Bangs it towards the broadcast swing benches. And Fritsch couldn't take the mark against Rosie, who thumps it over the line. Port Adelaide by 6. Dying stages of this opening term on ABC Sport.
Boundary throw in, true centre wing here. In front of the gates. Visentini and Gawn. Visentini knocks it down. Langford gathers, handballs over the top to Fritsch, goes the 1-2. He's dealt with by Visentini, but he gets his kick away. Flying was Van Rooyen. Great grab over Zirk Thatcher. At left half forward for Melbourne. Rolls around on his right foot, going inside. Looking for Petrarca, but fisted away there by Farrell. And we'll have a boundary throw in left forward. Pocket there for the D's, who trail by 6 points. 27 minutes gone in this first term.
Forward entries, we keep talking about it now. Melbourne just seem rushed. Now, great fight by Van Rooyen. Their inside 50 movement is rushed compared to Port Adelaide going back the other way.
Tossed in, Gawn takes it out of the ruck, hands it to Langdon, tight left forward pocket, looks for a miracle, it's a high wobbler, sits up on the behind line, committing with Zirk Thatcher, couldn't take it, and then bounced straight to the behind post. You could hear the crowd in agony as they watched him clatter in. The ball rolls over the line and it will be a minus score. Free kick.
For a push.
So that's what caused Zirk Thatcher to rattle into the padding. He did clutch his left leg for a moment's time, but has popped up and will take his kick. Margin remains at 6. Zirk Thatcher in the sweet direction. Another free kick. This time it's going Gawn's way. He's pleading at the umpire, thinking he was the offender.
This is where
he gets the footy.
Sorry, and this is where I reckon they can even look to work the ball around their forward 50 arc rather than the kick he's about to kick.
Gawn central, 20 out with his kick. He's looking for Van Rooyen. Got a push late, rolls to the back. Burgoyne gathers and shakes it off the side of the boot. Closing in on quarter time, and he's given the D's a set shot. 45 out from goal. And Bailey Fritsch was right next to it. He's probably the man you don't want with the footy. Set shot incoming for the D's.
That's the second one for Burgoyne too, isn't it? Exiting back 50.
Doesn't trust that left boot on the angle, so he'll go central to half forward to Lever. And again, bangs it to 20 from home, straight in front. Van Rooyen with a huge shove on Zerk Thatcher. He milked it for what it's worth. No whistle. Picked up by Hon Francis. Hands it to Burton. Tumbling kick over the line. Left half forward for the D's.
Yeah.
Deliberate.
Every day of the week.
Yeah. They'll get the footy back with 50 seconds to go.
Well, I don't know what the crowd are whinging about. As soon as he kicked it, if it had gone out of bounds, it was deliberate. Absolutely.
So McVie plays on. Kicks inside the forward 50. Punch down. Langford gathers. Kicks towards goal. Van Rooyen was there to stop it. It wasn't a mark. It wasn't 15. But he kicked the goal anyway. And he's got his second. You can hear the boos from the crowd.
Are they booing the deliberate?
They are.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Nah, they need to watch more footy.
So 3-4 apiece now. Van Rooyen's second, as I mentioned. 3-4-22. About 45 seconds left in this first quarter.
So Melbourne kicked the goal there. They're getting a really good look inside 50. What they need to work on, their inside entries are just not working for them. They have to work really hard. So they've gone now 16 to 11 inside 50s. They're smacking Port in clearance. They're smacking Port in contested possession. Yep. So they're getting field position. Where they're breaking down is that last connection piece going inside their forward 50.
16 entries for 3 goals. Yeah. We touched on it in the pre-game. They're going at 20% across the season.
And the long bomb inside their forward 50 ain't working because Radigalia, you've got a Lear that can air assist as well. That's just not working at the moment. They are generating shots, but more method they'd hit the scoreboard with majors rather than getting it exited from Port Adelaide's defenders.
Scores level, sweep down to Butters. Gang tackled by a couple and wrenched out of there by Viney. It rolls across the centre circle. Drew buffeted off it by Petrarca. Rosie fighting. Butters gets in there. Clearing kick for the Powers, a good one. Mead on the broadcast wing has to go. 25 seconds in the quarter. Crowd's trying to ride him. Hands it off to Pal Pepper, screws it around the body up to half forward, rising on Francis. Georgiades stays down, looked for an option, didn't get one, and Gawn gets him with the tackle, but he drove him in. Free kick, Mitch Georgiades.
Oh, yeah, that was
probably just outside his range, 12 seconds to go.
Tell you what, Gawn's lucky he didn't make contact with the ground with his head down here. That was an aggressive dump into the turf on Georgiades.
He sets it up, top of the goal square, Burgoyne! A gorgeous rise to clunk a big pack mark. That's a buzzer beater. He'll get a set shot right in front. 10 out.
Well, I tell you what, Gawn's tackle obviously caused that inside 50. Stephen May, if I was Gawn, I'd go up and give him a serve. Return the serve from last week because he didn't stop Burgoyne from sitting on whoever's head to take almost an uncontested mark. That's on you, Stephen May.
Bit of karma for the All-Australian defender. Jace Burgoyne comes in, couple of steps and spears it through to give Port the lead at quarter time. 4-4-28 to the D's, 3-4-22. The goal scorers for them to join Burgoyne is Bergman, Georgiades and Burn-Jones for the D's, 2 to Van Rooyen and just the 1 to Cozzy Pickett. So 3 lead changes in the opening term. Couple of injuries as well. Josh Money downstairs.
Yeah, well, Daniel Turner's just emerged from the Melbourne rooms after having a concussion test, so he's a wait and see at this moment. Doesn't look to be too bad. Caleb Windsor also for the D's has just had a cut on his head patched up, so he should also be able to return. Turner now resuming his place in the Melbourne huddle, so that's potentially good news for the D's as well. Now, the other one for Port Adelaide, still no sign of Ollie Wines. Looked to be in a fair amount of discomfort on the inside of his left knee, so that's definitely a cause for concern at the moment. Hugh Jackson, the power sub.
Great game of footy. Awesome to have you with us for it on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. It's Port by 6 on ABC Sport.
Meet the people who dare to imagine.
Making colour sing. You feel it.
In Picasso, the piano, the Classic 100 and creative types with Virginia Trioli.
Give me more. Give me more of that.
Where it's always free, always creative. ABC iView.
This is the 2025 AFL Premiership season on ABC Sport.
Wines over the top of Oliver. He'll release Bergman. Spots a target into the 50 and puts it out in the path of Georgiades, who takes the mark, 25 from home. Mitch Georgiades, the club's leading goal scorer this season, 25-18. Very slow approach, gets close to the man on the mark, but just squeezes it through.
Umpire chucks it up. Back position was Sweet, just grabbed it out of the air. He was stripped by Cozzy Pickett, who then did the 1-2 and then ran on and kicked the goal. Genius stuff from the $1 million man that we're going to be talking about. McVie plays on, kicks inside the forward 50, punch down, Langford gathers, kicks towards goal. Van Rooyen was there to stop it. It wasn't a mark, it wasn't 15, but he kicked the goal anyway, and he's got his second. You can hear the boos from the crowd.
Mitch Georgiades, probably just outside his range, 12 seconds to go. He sets it up, top of the goal square, Burgoyne! On the siren! Jace Burgoyne comes in, couple of steps and spears it through to give Port the lead at quarter time.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the AFL.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Cracking way to start your doubleheader on ABC Sport. The Eagles and the Blues to come from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Clint Wilden, Mitch Turner, Peter Bell, Shane Woden and Bridget Lacey. But here at the Adelaide Oval, we've got a tight affair. The Power lead the D's by 6 points. The loser will be in the bottom four. The winner will keep their fairy tale run alive as they look to bounce back from poor starts to this campaign. Both these sides still hopeful of featuring in September. Aaron Bryans and Tom Wilson calling the action alongside us this afternoon. Pair of all-Australian midfielders Josh Franco and Scott Thompson to break it all down.
Well, Scotty, I'm just looking at some of the numbers, and there's so much to talk about and so little time. But if you looked at some of the main KPIs that a lot of coaches focus on with the tackle count, the contested ball, the clearances, that's all well in favour of the Melbourne Footy Club. Where the numbers really jump out at me is the kick to mark and kick to handball ratio. So if you look at Port Adelaide, they've had 103 disposals, 66 kicks, 37 handballs. Melbourne have had 91 disposals, 50 kicks and 41. So Melbourne's kick to mark is sort of almost a 1-to-1. But Port Adelaide, we talked about the style of play that they're trying to use in that first quarter. They're trying to kick their way through Melbourne's defence. And at the moment, it's working. They've had 45 marks, which is a huge number. You multiply that by 4, you're talking 180 for the game. So you can definitely see the trend of the way that Port Adelaide are playing compared to the brand that Melbourne are serving up at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Melbourne have had a great look going forward as far as out of stoppage, but the breakdown's coming when they go inside 50. So they've dump kicked numerous times. And on the flip side, as we've mentioned, Radaglia and Ryan Burton have been huge in that first quarter with setting up their offensive ball movement out of the back half. And then Melbourne's inability to defend Port Adelaide in offence. And you've mentioned the amount of marks that Port Adelaide have taken. Port have had the ability to keep ball on body and then execute inside 50 to have now 6-1 inside 50 marks, which then converts on easy shots on goal.
Yeah. And no doubt the message to Port Adelaide from Ken Hinkley and his staff would be keep doing what you're doing. And the thing I really liked about Port Adelaide is that it's almost that risk versus reward. They're trying to hit that 45. You turn it over. Sometimes it can come back with interest. At the moment it's working, but they've got to keep backing themselves, hitting that 45 and opening up the fat side of the ground, if you like, where there's not a lot of density in terms of players, because they're getting better looks inside forward 50. And to your point, Scotty, with those 6 marks inside forward 50, it's really working at the moment for the Power.
Hot return from Jason Horne-Francis, 9 touches after missing a month of footy. He was the match winner against the D's last year at the G, and he's served it up early. Meanwhile, Saba Radaglia down back with 6 intercept possessions in the opening term. Massive performance.
Zach Butters warmed his way into the game.
Yeah.
Really quiet for the first 10 to 15 minutes, being worn tightly by Viney, but he's really worked his way into the game with 8 touches now.
And I reckon full credit to Vicentini and Sweet at the moment. Gorn not having a huge amount of impact. He's only had 4 hit-outs for that first quarter. Port Adelaide is sitting on 11. So they're doing a good job on Max Gorn.
Text line this afternoon, 0437 774 774. It's Port by 6. Out of the middle, Gorn and Vicentini collide. The D's ruckman gathers, missed his boot in the tackle. Play continues. Crowd's getting restless. Oliver spun down by Bergman. He couldn't get a disposal away. Gorn with the diving handball to the broadcast wing. Langford's there. He's had plenty of the footy. This will be disposal 11, but he gives it away. Willie Rioli for the Power. to Butters. Arcs his way around Howes, a full circle, and then gets it back with a beautiful handball from Drew. Off balance, no look, kick inside 50. Backtracking Turner's out there. Put it down for the D's, and Mays wrapped up in a tackle by Horne-Francis, who mounts him at the top of the goal square.
How sharp were those hands by Drew?
Yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
Got the ball deep inside 50, a ball up 15 metres from goal. Sweet knocks it to Drew. Does he get the reward? Smothered kick by Turner, gathered by Horne-Francis. Got it to Liddy, who has a flying shot at goal. Couldn't get the fairy tale goal in his first game just yet.
There it is.
Marked by Lever and Scott Thompson. There's that 50 metre for the man on the mark rule.
Have the umpires just completely taken away the advantage to just get back off the mark first? Like, where's the option to get off the mark versus that split moment where you don't have time?
It was a quick trigger. Out to the eastern side go the D's off that 50-metre penalty. Off hands, Burton can gather. Hands it to Burgoyne for the power. Then Burne-Jones inside looking for Drew. Cut off by Gawn. Rolls back to Burne-Jones, and he's wrapped up in a tackle wide of the centre circle. Port by 6. On the text line, Mark in Adelaide's wondering what our estimate of the crowd figure is. If they tell you it's anything over 35,000, they're lying. I reckon it's probably in the low 30s. The hill is very sparse. Upper tiers as well. Tossed up, gone down, ripped away by Bergman. Drives it into the 50 with a bullet pass. And Georgiades surges out of the goal square and takes the chest mark, 30 from home.
Well, once again, that play there from Bergman, the initial phase when he drove his legs out of the congestion, but it wasn't a long, high bomb, Scotty. It was just more of a flat kick inside 50. He had Georgiades, who read the play beautifully and really almost took an uncontested mark on his chest in a lead-up connect inside forward 50. Good play, Port Adelaide again.
Mitch Georgiades starts at true centre half forward. Comes into the northern end. Georgiades strikes it true. 2 for the afternoon. Port's up by a game high 2 goals. 5-4-34 to the Demons, 3-4-22. Couple of minutes into the second term. Sunday footy on ABC Sport. Josh Money downstairs.
Aaron, Ollie Wines has emerged from the Port rooms. He's back on the bench with that left knee heavily strapped. So it looks as though he's going to certainly try and give it a good go. And Daniel Turner, who we saw go down into the Melbourne rooms as well, now back on the ground after passing that concussion test for the D's.
Well, that's now 3 clearances to 0 in the start of their second quarter, and you see the difference exiting stoppage there with Bergman, the ability to use his legs, drive out, and almost will Georgiades to come at him.
Yep. Almost has the feel that Port Adelaide could break this open. Well, they might be jumping the gun a little bit, but they just look ominous at the moment.
The Jekyll today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a great clearance there from Bergman, who's having a great afternoon. A real impact. Poor bounce again from the umpire. Second time we've had that today.
Luca doesn't agree with you on the text line. Tomo says Willie Rioli needs to learn that rule. He gives away too many 50-metre penalties.
Thrown up in the middle. Gawn knocks it straight into the hands of Pickett, who gets it to Rivers. Snapped around the body towards right half forward for Melbourne. Sin did well on Chandler. Nursed him under the footy and takes a nice chest mark.
Here they go. And this is where Melbourne have to shut down their kick mark game.
So short to Rosie. Just ahead of left half back for Port. Skipper just sort of chips one down the line towards Visentini and Sweet. Chop of the arm. Yeah. So drop mark from Gawn. Visentini went to spoil, but the umpire says it was across the arm. So Gawn wins a free kick defensive side of centre wing. He wanted a 50. Nothing doing.
Didn't feel the ball was thrown directly back to him, but that's because he didn't really reach for it. Gawn has the footy at right half back. They're down 2 goals. A skipper up to right half forward. Flying is Radaglia, just threw his body into the pack and rockets the footy off the ricochet to Rioli. Broadcast wingy hands it inboard to Liddy. Flares it on the 45 to the corridor. Drew leaves it for Richards. Huge bump. McVee's put him down. The kick inside 50 will work. Georgiades drops low and tucks it into the arm. Richards pops up. Gee, that was a very dangerous shirt front. McVee's lucky that Richards has got up.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Was it a shoulder or head clash?
I reckon it might have been collarbone to head.
Yeah. Top of his shoulder, I think. That'll be looked at.
Georgiades starting to look really dangerous for the ball now.
Yep. He sure is.
Leads the league for marks inside 50. He's had plenty of them already this afternoon. Mitch Georgiades crosses the paint This one starts right, doesn't come back. Minor score his first blemish of the afternoon. Port Adelaide up by 13 points, 5-5-35 to 3-4-22 on ABC Sport.
So Stephen May's got the footy. Under pressure here, the D's.
I'll tell you one player that needs to get going for Melbourne is Petrarca. Just the 2 disposals.
May goes long, looking for Gawn, who claimed the mark but must have been touched in the process. Visentini lays a big bump on Oliver. That socket off the ground dangerously inside the forward 50. May's hit hard by Georgiades. Umpire says he wasn't contesting the ball, so May wins the free kick. Kicks it out to left half back.
Port Adelaide faithful, not happy with that, but I must admit I did think that was there.
So Melbourne bring it out of defence, finding that man Petrarca, who marks defensive side centre wing.
On the instep, heads up to left half forward. 2-on-2 there, it clears the pack. Port have the numbers. Bergman wheels away from Chandler and picked off by Pickett. Races into the 50, check side from deep. It bounces into the post on the left-hand side.
That's a goal.
It's a goal.
Wow.
How has he pulled that off? Cozzy Pickett with some magic from 45. He is worth every cent at the moment.
They got him cheap, Aaron.
My goodness, he's looked electric this afternoon. That was almost a Hail Mary and he's pulled it off. The D's bring the margin back down to 8 points at the Adelaide Oval. 6 minutes into the second term on ABC Sport.
What was Burton doing then in the goal square? He clearly
left it because I thought it was hitting the post and he's let it roll through.
Interesting choice, but yeah. Melbourne again, though, when they go forward, it's always hard work. They've relied on a Port Adelaide turnover then for Cozzy Pickett to kick one out of his backside in the end. Like, brilliant goal, outstanding finish, but relying on a lot of luck to get on the scoreboard.
I totally agree with you. And I was thinking their last entry inside their forward 50 or movement of the footy from half back, they just all look lost at sea at the moment. They're all at sea. There's no real method in the way they're doing it. They're just bombing it. And as you said, Port Adelaide are mopping up in their back 50.
Back in the middle of the ground, Sweet and Van Rooyen. Sweet gathers, immediately wrapped up by Van Rooyen. Now, Port fans will understand how he kicked that. It was very Daniel Motlop-esque. It was out on the outside of the boot in the left half forward flank and managed to get it through the goals with a check side kick. So from the contest, Melbourne win the free kick. Over the top to Oliver, who gets it to Chandler and Pickett. He's got another opportunity, running into an open goal. Back-to-back from Cozzy. And the D's are right back in it. Just like that, they go to 5-4-34. Port 5-5-35. 8 minutes gone, second term.
Well, I'll tell you what happened there is there was the centre bounce which went into a secondary ball up. Cozzy Pickett started on ball in the CB. He then spat forward, and there was a bit of confusion between Aaliyah and Farrell, I think it was. So they did the handover late, and it was too late in that Cozzy was able to run forward after Melbourne won the repeat stoppage in the ball up. And again, he's kicked 2 in the space of, what'd you say, 20 seconds, 30 seconds?
He's up to 11 touches now, 3 goals. Huge impact. He's, I know we've touched on it already. He's signed for unders,
The way he's going, he'll have a goal for every year he's signed on during the week. 3 already this afternoon.
And he's looking electric in there at the moment.
Margin's just a point, just like that. Turned on ahead at the Adelaide Oval. Sunday footy on ABC Sport. Tossed up. Van Rooyen in the middle against Sweet. Picked off by Bergman. Straight line kick into the 50. Backtracking was Burne-Jones. He almost left it for Visentini. He wasn't going to get there in time, and Lever cuts it off. Hands it to McVie, and the Demons move it to the broadcast wing. Turner up towards the logo. Fritsch used the body on Burton, got rid of him, then handed it to Petrarca. Turned into a wall. They've made a meal of this. Oliver's done very well to get out of dodge. Got it to Salem. Kick to Langdon. He's all alone. Right half forward. Langdon unselfishly screws it central. Big fist from Burgoyne. Bounces awkwardly for Zerk Thatcher. Melksham paddles it to Rivers. Kick smothered. Radagalier again. Hands it off to Farrell. Thumps it out of there, almost a panic kick. It's a high wobbler. Petrarca tracking, couldn't get there. Pepper paddles it towards the line, and it'll be a boundary throw-in. Right half forward, Port by a point.
Melbourne just starting to look a bit sharper with their hand. They're finding some nice pockets of space. They're cutting the angles a bit better with their run and executing by hand a little bit cleaner than they were in the first quarter.
Boundary throw-in, right half forward for Melbourne. Sweet and Van Rooyen knocks it to Wines, who's back on the ground. Tries to fight through the Petrarca and Oliver tackles, but the umpire says we'll ball it up. Painted the 50 right half forward. Van Rooyen to Rivers, who floats a handball forward. Going to be called a throw, says the umpire. So Rosie's going to take the advantage. Chips the ball out wide to Burgoyne. It had to be good, and it was. He marks in front of Windsor, right half back for Port.
In front of the Rashudo stand, staring into the sun. Kicks inboard. Rosie wasn't 15, close to the defensive edge. Around the body, rushes the kick up to Pal Pepper. He just can't get there in time and rolls into the LED fence. It'll be a boundary throw in front of the Bashir stand. You've got a friend on the text line, Tomo, 0437 774 774. Alan Middleton says, scrap the stupid stand rule. Even the umpires don't know what they're doing, and it could have cost the Crows a win on Friday night.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Port by a point. Tossed in, Gawn battling with Vicentini. The D's win it down. Pick it again out of the stoppage. Clean hands it to Viney. Chandler surging left half forward. Hits it too long to the goal square. Radagalia's back there. Intercept number 7 and 50 off the stand. He's called that in 2 seconds. There's no warning. They're just pinging them.
I'm telling you now, in the player's mind, they're not thinking, I've got to get back 9 metres off the mark from deep in the D50, or forward 50, sorry.
You'd want to close it in case there's a play on.
So it's knocked out over the boundary line. Centre wing outer side of the ground will have a throw in.
It frustrates me, it really does. The other thing that just seems to have gone is, when is a 20 metre kick no longer 15 metres anymore?
I just think, it's just such an advantage for the team that they're under pressure. You've worked hard to lock it into your forward line, and then all of a sudden there's the relief of the pressure. Gawn knocks it straight down. Chandler to Oliver, intercepted by Horne-Francis. He's swung 360 in the tackle, but manages to get to Butters, to Rosie. The triumvirate work it to Burgoyne. He's forward to centre wing. Pumps it towards the forward 50, looking for Sam Powell-Pepper. Over the top was May with a big spoil for Melbourne. Gathered there by Wines. His handball's intercepted by Oliver. It was in turn intercepted by Bergman. Liddy to Powell-Pepper. Goes towards the top of the goal square. Rioli flies. Roving was Mead. He just wasn't clean, unfortunately, for the power. And McVee's going to run it out of defence.
Kick up towards centre wing. Petty uses the body. Brushes off Vicentini, who pulls up, doesn't chase him. Kick up towards right half forward, Petrarca. They've got the overlap. Kick way too long in the air for Melcham, and the desperate backtrack from Rosie. Ran all the way from centre half back into the 50, closed it down, and now they've got the counter-punch on the switch. Burgoyne to the eastern side. Here's Butters, tucks it under one arm, breaks away from Oliver, shoots the handball to Powell-Pepper, charging towards the 50, spots Rioli, and he runs it in with one arm. Plays on and snaps it through. Electric football from Port Adelaide. They're up by 7 once again. What a surge. All from Connor Rosie. 6-5-41 to Melbourne's 5-4-34. 13 played, second term. Scott Thompson and Josh Franco with you on ABC Sport. And we might be getting a free kick as well inside 50.
The ball's in the hands of Georgiades at the moment. I didn't see what happened. I don't know if it's another shot on goal or...
It looks like it.
Remarkable.
So they have paid Rioli's goal.
Yep.
And this is going to be another set shot for Port Adelaide. And the Demons, for all their good work...
Disaster. Disaster for the D's.
So Rioli celebrates with Horne-Francis and Richards. We're just trying to check the replays to see if there was anyone collected there, but...
Might have been against Stephen May, I think.
Some dodgy looks in the box on that one.
I don't know. What was it? What happened there?
Mitch Georgiades comes in and converts. 3 for the afternoon. It's not even half-time yet. Back-to-back goals for the Power. They've unravelled the D's in a matter of minutes. 7-5-47 they lead. Melbourne 5-4-34. 14 played in the second term. Simon Goodwin would be ropeable.
Well, forgetting the Georgiades' second shot on goal, there was a couple of acts of brilliance. You called it superbly. The off-ball slide from Connor Rosie with the entry inside forward 50 for the D's to intercept the mark and then go quick off turnover. And then the one-on-one win from Rioli was outstanding, Scotty.
even before that, when Butters got the ball, his footy IQ is elite. See how he took off and he drew two to him to then release Powell Pepper into time and space, which made it then an easy inside forward 50 entry for him.
Yeah. And apologies to Stephen May. It was actually McVie punched Georgiades right in the breadbasket, so that's what the free kick was paid for.
Made him pay. Cozzy Pickett tries to win it back. That's a great tackle from Visentini, but too high, says the umpire. The application was there.
Must admit, I don't reckon you mind that as a coach. Big ruckman doing that. Getting away
Pickett
free
plays
kick.
on, goes inside the forward 50, misses the target of Gawn, who made Farrell earn it. Farrell's then wrapped up in the tackle. Yeah, it certainly goes, Scotty.
There is the intensity's just gone up a couple of notches, and it's good to see. A bit more combative now.
Tossed into the air, Gawn with the tap. Wines is there, hands it to Sin, bowled over by Petrarca. Pickett's been put down behind play. Meanwhile, Petty has a shot on goal. Radagalier gets back and knocks it through. Pickett finally gets up off his haunches. Just looks a little winded out there in the middle. Minor score for the D's. Port's lead a flat 2 goals midway through the second term.
Radigalier's playing a game, isn't he?
Yep.
9 disposals. He's been influential down back for Port Adelaide.
Hard to do the votes today. We've got 2 guys who've got 3 goals already. Bergman's playing a game. Radigalier's playing a game. Port bring it outside 50. Dangerous ball there from Farrell. He's normally so good by leg. Instead, he went by hand at left half-back, turned it over, and Rivers goes inside to Petrarca, who marks in front of Butters, gives him a big shove. They often reverse those. And Scott Thompson called it. There is a bit of spice in the action here at Adelaide Oval. We know Petrarca loves his cooking.
Did Butters just rub his face against him? I don't blame Petrarca for putting one in his chest then.
So Petrarca's going to have a shot on goal, 45 metres out, a slight angle away to the right. Crowd getting involved as well. You can hear the boos. Big moment in the game. Melbourne trail by 12 points halfway through the second term. Petrarca kicks. Didn't get a lot of purchase on it. Didn't even make the distance, and Visentini rushes it through. So the D's 5-6-36, Port 7-5-47, 17.5 minutes gone.
He's kicked that from 48, didn't make the journey. Wow, he's having a bit of a stinker at the moment, Petrarca.
So watch Jack Viney and Zach Butters throughout this contest now, because there was a lot of lip. Exiting kick towards right half back. Rosie drops down, tries to slide a handball out. Pickett's there. Petty paddles it to him. It might have bounced off his boot over the line. Umpire's going to say boundary throw in front of the Rashudo stand. So Judd McVie going back. Shirt front that's taken out Joe Richards. Thankfully he's still playing on, but it was a heavy hit. And now a gut punch to Mitch Georgiades. He's certainly going to be looked at a lot by the MRO this afternoon. Tossed in, gone down. Straight to Wines though. Hands it to Mead, and again Pickett's put down behind the ball, and the umpire's seen it this time. Free kick to the Demon. He's really struggling, Cozzy. He's copped some heavy hits.
What happens to, I reckon you draw that sort of contact when you get on the fly at stoppage.
Butters with the swinging fist has put him down. It's getting hot out there. Pickett into the 50, top of the goal square. Melksham Flyers can't control it. Rosie toes it out of there. It's tumbling towards the boundary line. Right half back. Now Pepper dives onto the footy and rolls it over. There will be a boundary throw in.
And I reckon what's happening, Cozzy Pickett is getting on the fly and looking really dangerous around the stoppage scenario. So no doubt the message has come down, or they've identified it. So they're trying to pick him off as he walks or runs through the stoppage. And Butters on that occasion just a little bit reckless.
They'll look at that.
You
it's just where he got him off the ball, not looking at the ball.
Yeah.
He hasn't been injured, so not a suspendable offence probably, but just one that they like to look at. Ball's come back in play from the boundary throw-in. Hasn't moved far from right half back for Port Adelaide, but they work it through hands to Wines, who kicks down the line, centre wing. Fisted down by Georgiades. Who's there to rove? It was Petrarca. Did well, got the handball off to Langford, who goes in turn to Windsor. Inside the forward 50, flying over the top was Radagalier. Brought it to ground. Rosie rode the tackle of Viney, but he couldn't get past Chandler. Got the handball away just in time. Radagalier kicks down the line. A pressure releasing kick gathered by Jason Horne-Francis, who takes one bounce. He's mowed down! Play on, says the umpire. That's got to be holding the ball. Ends up with Wines. Handballs to Mead. Ball's on centre wing, Georgiades. He's happy to see it over the boundary line. I'm no expert. But if you take a couple of bounces, take someone on and don't get rid of it properly, that's holding the ball.
Yeah, that's a fair shout, Tom.
Should have been holding the ball, but what Melbourne have been able to do now is put real pressure on the ball carrier, which allows them to set up behind the ball, and that's why Horne-Francis had no one to kick to forward of the ball then.
Tossed in, Gawn front position, Port by 11 points. Horne-Francis out of the stoppage, gets the tap, up to right half forward, May presented, couldn't control it, front and square was Powell-Pepper, little 1-2 with Drew, Wines gets it back to the ball, Powell-Pepper paddles it to Drew, threw it on the boot, jamming kick a little wider, Burn-Jones, picked up by Turner, thumps it out of there with a wobbler, only as far as Burton, and we know he's got the range in that left boot, he marks on the paint of 50.
Well, interesting looking at some of the numbers, and on that occasion, I think it was the boundary thrown. Horne-Francis all on his own at the stoppage. They've definitely lifted in that area, Port Adelaide. First quarter, it was 13-2 in favour of Melbourne. Now it's 7-6 Port Adelaide's way.
Ryan Burton backs himself. Cuts across, gives it as much as he can. It'll land flat on the behind line. Gawn knocks it through. Another whistle. It's going the way of the D's. Free kick, so no score. Melbourne will have the footy in front of the scoreboard. Currently down by 11 points with 7 to play. Second term on ABC Sport.
They bring it out of their defence, and Jason Horne-Francis sends it back in, but he missed the target of Burn-Jones. Kicked it straight to Max Gawn.
Oh, Oliver's on in the middle. Sorry.
Spot on there, Josh Franco.
That kick there I don't like.
That's a high ball. Sitting under it is Ratugolea. He's the one that takes the mark. He's having a day. He switches it back to centre half, back through Farrell.
Oliver didn't even look to change the angle, did he? It was just a blast forward to Ratugolea, not the kick.
Farrell to send to Zerk Thatcher.
And again, this is where Port Adelaide are really looking to own the footy.
Inboard to Burton. He's going to go to Ratugolea. So they've got space on the outer side if he can move it quickly. He does. Finds Mead. Defensive side of centre wing to Horne-Francis. He's owned that centre wing out there. He goes short again to Burn-Jones, who drops the mark but did enough. Mead's got it right half forward. He's got a runner inside in Burn-Jones. He kicks long towards the top of the goal square. Missed the target. Langdon knocked it forward towards the goals, and Powell-Pepper almost ran onto that into an open goal, but he's tackled right on the behind line, and we'll have a throw up. Port lead it by 11 points.
The forward momentum of Powell-Pepper as he flung himself in between the Demons to try and cut off that footy. So ball up, still in the field of play on the behind line. Vicentini down. Handball from Richards, nearly picked off. Then a quick kick across the face. It's tumbling in front of the scoreboard. Levers under pressure. Got a handball out to Chandler. Chasing tackle from Horne-Francis affects the kick.
That was brilliant, Horne-Francis.
Out on the full. Set shot to come from 45 out.
Speed and physicality, outstanding.
Horne-Francis with the smart play. Centres the kick on the paint of 50 to Burton. So missed the one more to the left, and this one's a righter angle, staring into the sun now that's crept through the fig trees. Ryan Burton at the attacking edge. Again, thumps it as hard as he can. Gawn is waiting, puts down the mark. Howes is there, hands it to Salem. Banged into by Burn-Jones, who did everything to keep him in, but knocked him over the line in the end. Minor score, Port Adelaide by 12.
So Salem will bring the footy back for Melbourne. A real contest on here at Adelaide Oval. D's trailing by 12 points. Goes short to Howes. Right back pocket for the D's. Still 5 minutes left in this second quarter. Goes long towards Gawn, who's just too strong in front of Sweet. Starting to get involved in the game. Chips the ball to centre half back. Gathered by Lever. He works in turn to his partner in crime in May. Kicking long down the line towards Langdon in front of Farrell. He rolls around quickly. Loves to run with the footy, does Langdon. Pops it long inside the forward 50. Van Rooyen hit him on the chest. He dropped the mark. The numbers with the D's though. Fritsch at the bottom. Tackled hard. Almost in the back, not quite. So we'll have a ball up at the top of the goal square. Good tackle there from Rosie.
That's the difference in styles too. So Langdon breaks really hard on the 45. Great mark. He had Sparrow inside 45 short kick versus that long dump kick.
Caught by 12. Gawn takes it out of the ruck and brought down in the tackle from Sweet. Underground handball from Mead was very creative. Drew's kick treacherous. Singh did well. Stuck the mark up against Sparrow, brought him down. Hands it on to Drew, and now Butters goes for a run, takes a bounce audaciously against McVie, and then hands it across to Farrell, swings the kick to the spine. Here's Bergman. Kick across is a loopy one. Rosie waited an eternity, nearly picked off. Committing was Melksham. Rosie gets it on the bounce. Kick up to Drew, here they come. Liddy at half forward, threw it on the boot under a bit of pressure. Hit and hope didn't look, and only finds Howes for the D's. They're down 12. Closing in on half-time on ABC Sport.
So the switch goes to Salem in the left back pocket for the D's. Works it down the line towards Langford. Van Rooyen drops another mark there. Puts his teammates under pressure. He's got some support there with... It was Viney who got it back to Salem. Now Langdon goes long down the line, but Radigalia.
How good's he been?
This is definitely his best game for the club. I reckon he's in his best form. He's certainly put it together this year. He was thrown forward last year as a solution when Charlie Dixon was injured, but he's back where he got recruited to from Geelong.
13 disposals at 80%.
Goes inside the forward 50, knocked back out. Butters was clean to Georgiades. Horne-Francis kicks towards the top of the goal square, but the numbers favour the D's, and a good intercept mark there from Turner.
And that's that high ball inside 50 that Port Adelaide would like to try to avoid. On that occasion they couldn't, but intercept mark there for Melbourne.
Turner to Salem. Now short kick to Viney. Port 7-6-48, the D's 5-6-36. Kick up to the eastern side, 2-on-2 there. It hits the deck. Mead turned into trouble, wrapped up by Van Rooyen. We'll get a ball up in front of the Odie stand.
Once again, that long kick out of D50, Scotty, from I think it was at Viney. Just lacking some method and real direction coming out of their D50 with ball in hand at the moment, Melbourne.
Tossed up, gone down, picked off by Horne-Francis, arcs away from Oliver, then hands it to Butters. The superstars combining. Central kick. A little bit dicey. Sin was there with Fritsch. He did well. A youngster in his second game back from a hip injury. Looking much more settled after a quiet game in Canberra, and the kick is precise. Pinpoint to Liddy.
How was that for a kick?
He stuck it under duress. Has it centre wing. Kick down the line for Rioli. Spoil came from Turner. Bowie now for the D's. To Lever. Hospital handball to Chandler. Crunched by Rioli. Got it out to Turner. Kick flirting with the boundary line. Fritsch keeps it in. Caught too high against Farrell. Free kick to the Demons. Down 12.
Fritsch risky. Butters got the hand in there. So the turnover happens. Richards handballs towards Farrell, knocks it towards Rioli. Handballs inside the forward 50. Powell Pepper lowers the eyes and finds Horne-Francis left forward pocket about 30 metres out.
Wow, I tell you what, you talk about risk v reward. Who was that kick? Was it Fritsch trying to hit that 45 back through the middle of the ground? It was on. He just didn't execute it, and the receiver didn't come at the kicker, so it was an easy turnover. And then once again, Port Adelaide's ability to hit targets and then end up with the ball in Horne-Francis' hands was outstanding.
Running around for the snap, Horne-Francis bends it back perfectly. Well, he's had 3 behinds in the first quarter. Gets a shot from the pocket and slots it. Corner pocket, 1-3 to Horne-Francis. Port have a 3-goal margin there, 8-6-54. Melbourne 5-6-36. 29 minutes gone second term. Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Tom, it happened about 10 minutes ago, but Cosy Pickett has finally now gone down to the rooms for a HIA after that collection from Zach Butters in that contest. So he will be assessed for concussion and major ramifications, of course, for Butters and Cosy in terms of next week if he's deemed unfit to continue today.
Well, Scotty, just looking at some of the numbers, we've spoken about Georgiades' influence on the game, Radigalia, but Horne-Francis, he's been absolutely outstanding. 20 disposals, he's had 12 kicks, 8 handballs. He probably should have 4 goals. He's kicked 1 goal, 3, but missed 3 easy ones early, but he's been hugely influential for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, and we mentioned the impact that he can have with Port Adelaide through the middle of the ground, and now he's shown us when he does go forward how dangerous he can be as well.
Scott Thompson, Josh Franco on ABC Sport. The Power by 3 goals. A terrible bounce in the middle will be recalled. Pete on the text line in Ballarat says Butters will be gone 3 weeks. He's gone heavy.
Wow.
That's extreme.
Yep.
Had a look at the vision. We'll describe it for you in a moment. Sweet. Takes it out of the ruck, an up and under kick. Sits in the air for an eternity, and Pepper just waited and took the mark. Bowie, no contest against him. He'll hand it to Wine. Spearing kick. Georgiades put it down. Arms out in front, just couldn't stick. Richards falls into the footy. Extracted by Georgiades. Couldn't get boot to ball. And Sins tackled by a couple. We'll get a ball up 40 from home to the right-hand side.
Talk about opportunities going begging. Georgiades kicked 3 goals, 2 to this point in the game, and another one there going begging. Should have marked that.
Ruck contest. Oliver gets it out of defence. Not for long, though, because Burgoyne takes the mark. Asked to play on by the umpire. Goes the 1-2 with Wines. Kicks to a dangerous spot. Georgiades was nursed under it. Yes, the umpire saw it too. So he'll have a set shot. 20 metres out. Slight angle to the right.
And again, I think that was actually Stephen May on that occasion. He was just a little bit vigorous in the attempt to spoil the ball and ran Georgiades under the footy. So technically there, looking at the replay, momentum going forward.
Not much in it, but repeat inside 50s puts pressure on the defenders, and
it does.
Naturally, now that May's been led to the ball numerous times by Georgiades, as we've already touched on, is looking really dangerous. Naturally, you want to start to impede with his run, and that's what happens there. For a contest that Melbourne should have won, he's now given Port Adelaide a free look on goal.
Thoughts of Scott Thompson there, drafted by the D's back in the day. Spent some time at Port Adelaide as well. So Georgiades with a huge opportunity on the halftime siren. Kicks from 20 metres out. Slots his fourth. And the Power powered home in that second term. They've got a 24-point margin at halftime. They're 9-6-60. Melbourne 5-6-36.
Massive quarter for Port Adelaide as they pile on 5 goals to the Demons 2. As Tom mentioned, Mitch Georgiades has 4 singles to Burgoyne, Bergman, Horne-Francis and Burn-Jones. For the D's, 3 to Pickett, who's currently off with a HIA, and Jacob Van Rooyen has 2. The incident throughout the second quarter, there's been a lot of them involving Judd McVie, but this one for Cozzy Pickett. Zach Butters was being closely checked by Jack Viney, had his left arm pinned out in the stoppage as the ball was tossed into the air, and he's almost flung himself forward, and his right shoulder has collected with Cozzy Pickett's head. So it was certainly reckless. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but there were a couple of incidents before that where Pickett had copped a couple of knocks in the stoppages and gone to ground. So this felt like the volcano finally erupting that it'd been brewing for a bit, and Butters finally put Pickett down, and this one will be looked at, Josh.
Well, it's interesting. I mentioned in that second quarter, when you get a guy like Pickett who is on the fly and looking really dangerous at stoppage, you get away with that 3 or 4 times. But I reckon then opposition mids, the coaches are looking at the vision all the time, whether the message went out or it was just Butters making the decision to try to check his run. And he was probably a little bit overzealous in the way he did it.
So the importance here is whether Cozzy Pickett comes back out after half-time, because if he doesn't, all of a sudden that impact is graded much higher. So if it's careless, as we expect it would be the way that incident happened, and low, it'd be a fine for Zach Butters. Now, that's still a story in itself, because I don't think he's cracked the 50,000 mark yet, Tom. I reckon he's sitting at 49,000, so he'd be the first player ever to reach $50,000 in fines.
Yeah, he's certainly racked them up over his career, and he plays on the edge, but I wouldn't call him a dirty player, but it's remarkable how much he's been fined.
Who pays that?
He does.
Does he?
Unless he's struck some deal with a club to say, if you fly the flag the right way, we'll look after you.
The way he's giving them away, you'd think there's something dodgy going on.
Yeah.
But for a small man, he's a very aggressive player, which is what we love about him. And, he holds the vice-captain label at the club. So he wants to lead by example and lead the right way by action. And to the naked eye, that incident didn't look like too much. But the fact that someone has come off now and gone into, 20-minute period, is it, that he has to stay off? Yeah, so who knows what comes of it if Pickett comes back on. But I love the way Butters goes about it, though.
If he's ruled out, it goes suddenly from a fine with the low impact up towards high severe, which could be anywhere from 2, 3 or more if it goes to the tribunal. So it's a big nervous wait for Port Adelaide fans this halftime break, because we'll see if Cozzy Pickett can continue. The Judd McVie incidents that I mentioned before as well. So a shirt front on Joe Richards, where he collected him almost with his collarbone, will certainly be looked at. Richards popped up and played on, but again, a careless incident, which will probably end up being a fine. And then a gut punch as well on Mitch Georgiades. So he's probably going to get a couple of world-opening incidents that the MRO is going to have to look at. Poor old Michael Christian will have a big afternoon. And speaking of that, there's been no massive penalties from yesterday's games. So the match review coming out shows Harvey Thomas has copped a $3,000 sanction for tripping, and Jaden Laverty careless contact with an umpire, so $1,500 there, but nothing too serious coming out of the MRO. Here it is Port Adelaide by 24 points at the major break, 9-6-60 to 5-6-36. Still to come, we've got West Coast and Carlton from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can hear it all on the ABC Listen app with Clint Wilden, Mitch Turner, Peter Bell, Shane Woden and Bridget Lacey. Couple of texts coming through as well on 0437 774 774. Lisa in Ellenbrook again agrees with Scott Thompson, says the umpires need to also get the holding the ball rule right. It's frustrating that there are 4 umpires and they all have their own interpretations. Stuart says we need robots umpiring the game. The sooner the better. They'll be programmed to get the decisions right. Not sure about that one, Stuart. Simon on the York Peninsula says totally agree with Scott. Every week we're seeing teams drag back into the contest with very dubious 50-metre penalties and games decided by questionable decisions. It is ruining the game. So if you are just joining us, we've had, I reckon, 3 or 4 where players marked it in the back pocket, and within 2 seconds the man who's got to come back to the 10-metre mark has been pinged immediately and they've played 50 metres. So there's just no time for the player to get back to where they're supposed to be. No warning either. Chris says the Power look good when they lower their eyes, and Simon from Adelaide says Scott Thompson and Josh Franco would be covered in tattoos on Cozzy Pickett's wage. So fair bit of spare coin there, Josh, you'd have to use if you were on $12 million over 9 years.
Yeah, well, from what we've seen in that first half, we've said it a couple of times, I reckon they got him at unders. So he's been hugely influential, Pickett. He's looking dangerous around the stoppage. He gives them just a different dynamic, doesn't he? He gives them that leg speed and that burst out of there, and he generally uses the ball well.
For the record, you're clean skins, aren't you?
Pretty much. I've got my kids' names on my ribs, and that's it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say Scott wouldn't want any ink because he's got the biceps out. You don't want to cover those.
They definitely need to be seen.
One of our colleagues, Brett Delidio, famously said, or I don't know if he said it publicly, but he said, never put a bumper sticker on a Ferrari.
I don't mind that, Tommy.
Thoughts of Scott Thompson and Josh Franco on ABC Sport. We'll dive into some of the stats and the numbers and what's going on in this contest in a moment's time. And the second half coming your way with Port Adelaide up by 24 points. But for now on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app, it's time to get the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News with David Rowlands. Israeli emergency workers are surveying damaged buildings in the coastal town of Bat Yam, south of Tel Aviv, after reports of an Iranian missile strike. Local media reports say a woman in her 60s was killed in the strike, while another 30 people were injured. Israel and Iran launched fresh attacks on each other today, stoking further fears of a wider conflict after Israel expanded its surprise assault on Iranian nuclear facilities with a strike on the world's biggest gas field in Iran. Air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem following launches from Yemen as well as Iran. A massive US military parade has rolled through the streets of the capital, Washington, with thousands of troops taking part and tanks, armoured personnel carriers and artillery rumbling down Constitution Avenue. The parade marked the 250th anniversary of the US Army and also fell on Trump's 79th birthday, who attended, accompanied by the First Lady, Melania. The celebration was marred, however, by discord across the US. In the hours before it began, hundreds of thousands of people marched and rallied in cities from New York to Chicago to Los Angeles, protesting against Trump's actions since his return to power in January. And the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and US President Donald Trump will have their first face-to-face meeting on the sidelines of this week's G7 Leaders Summit in Canada. The meeting will come just days after the Trump administration announced a review of its AUKUS agreement to provide nuclear-powered submarines to Australia. Mr Albanese says he will raise AUKUS with Trump, as well as the President's imposition of tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium.
I look forward to building on the very constructive phone conversations that we've had on the 3 occasions that we've had the opportunity to talk. So I obviously will raise tariffs, we'll raise the importance as well of AUKUS.
Investigations are underway into the fatal shooting of a Melbourne man in Bali. Costa Haratos reports.
Balinese police have released eyewitness details of the fatal shooting of 32-year-old Zivan Radmanovic. He was killed just after midnight on Saturday at a villa in Mungu, about an hour north of Kuta. Police say he was shot twice in the chest and once in his right foot. A Bali police spokesperson says the victim's wife was woken by her husband's screams and reports seeing a man wearing a bright orange jacket and dark helmet. A second Australian man, aged 34, who was also staying at the villa, was injured in the shooting. Witnesses saw 2 men, both with thick Australian accents, fleeing after the shooting.
Victoria Police are investigating a fatal collision involving multiple motorcycles in Melbourne's southeast last night. Police say 4 riders collided as part of a group of 40 travelling on the South Gippsland Freeway in Dandenong just after 7 o'clock. A male believed to be aged in his 20s died at the scene. 3 other victims were taken to hospital, including one with serious injuries. Police are investigating after a body was found in bushland in Sydney's west today. Officers made the discovery early this afternoon in Warrington. A crime scene has been established. Sydney could soon get its second film studio as part of a multi-million-dollar funding package to support the industry. The New South Wales government will allocate $380 million in the upcoming budget later this month for the film and digital games sector, including $100 million to scout for a new film studio in Sydney. Currently, the state's only film studio is at Moore Park. Minister for the Arts, John Graham, says there's clearly a demand.
There is big demand. New South Wales is the centre of the screen industry in Australia. When screen production happens in Australia, about half the time it happens in New South Wales. That's why there's the demand for this new studio space.
The Brisbane City Council is announcing a new master plan for Brisbane's Mount Cootha precinct. Stephanie Felicina has more.
The new plan includes introducing new attractions, expanding ecotourism and protecting Mount Cootha's native areas. A wilderness walking trail with overnight glamping huts, a Botanic Gardens nighttime light show and reimagined tropical dome will be just some of the new attractions considered. The Brisbane Sustainability Agency, chaired by Nigel Charmier, will lead the project. It's part of a larger plan to improve Brisbane's ecotourism offerings ahead of the 2032 Olympic Games.
And in some breaking news just in, the mayor of Bat Yam in Israel says that 4 people are being killed and over 100 wounded in the Iranian missile attack on the town. We'll have more on that developing story as news comes to hand. That's all for the moment on ABC News.
On the ABC Listen app, hear the latest true crime podcasts. Binge the full investigation on Someone Knows Something, Unravel and Mushroom Case Daily. True crime on the ABC Listen app.
Ben Cameron and Corbin Middlemass from ABC Sport here.
Alongside Paul Roos, Brett Delidio and Poppy Penny, we bring you all the latest AFL news from both on and off the field on the ABC AFL Daily podcast.
You can hear it all on the ABC Listen app.
Up to steady and pull the trigger.
Get ABC AFL Daily Podcast. It's your daily footy conversation. Find it on the ABC Listen app. This is the 2025 AFL Premiership season on ABC Sport.
Melbourne win the free kick. Over the top to Oliver, who gets it to Chandler and Pickett. He's got another opportunity, running into an open goal. Back to back from Cozzy. And the D's are right back in it.
Butters tucks it under one arm, breaks away from Oliver, shoots the handball to Powell-Pepper, charging towards the 50, spots Rioli, and he rounds it in with one arm. Plays on and snaps it through. Electric football from Port Adelaide.
Farrell knocks it towards Rioli. Handball's inside the forward 50. Powell-Pepper lowers the eyes and finds Horn-Francis left forward pocket about 30 metres out. Running around for the snap. Horn-Francis bends it back perfectly. Burgoyne takes the mark. Asked to play on by the umpire. Goes the 1-2 with Wines. Kicks to a dangerous spot. Georgiades was nursed under it. Yes, the umpire saw it too. So Georgiades with a huge opportunity on the halftime siren. kicks from 20 metres out. Slots his fourth.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the AFL.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Great to have you with us at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide lead Melbourne by 24 points in a hot and fiery affair as we close in on the conclusion of round 14. The Eagles and the Blues still to come on ABC Sport from 6 Eastern Standard Time. But gee, this is a big game in the context of both these club seasons. The loser in the bottom 4, the winner only 2 games out of the top 8. And a lot has happened. So in that second quarter, a couple of incidents that will be looked at by Michael Christian. The biggest of them all, Zach Butters colliding with Keziah Pickett at a stoppage. Looked like a close check where his collarbone shoulder collected. Cozzy, who came off for a HIA late in the term, was a delayed one, but eventually they pulled him off for it. And the news from Josh Money downstairs is that he has passed. So that is good news for Port Adelaide fans, and Zach Butters means that impact will be downgraded to a low or a medium, depending on how they see it at the MRO, but more likely a fine than any sort of suspension for Zach Butters after that hit on Keziah Pickett. And good news for the $12 million man who gets to play out the contest that he has been so damaging in. He's had 3 goals already, a couple of those back-to-back that really changed the momentum at that point of the game. Port Adelaide kicked the last 4 of the quarter, though, to find themselves up by 24 points. 9-6-60 to the Melbourne's 5-6-36. Aaron Bryans and Tom Wilson calling the action for you alongside Scott Thompson and Josh Franco. News out of the day, nothing much from the MRO, just a couple of fines from yesterday's games. But the sad news coming out of the Brisbane Lions camp is that Jack Payne is out for the remainder of the season after that knee injury yesterday was confirmed to be a ruptured patella tendon. So massive news for the reigning premiers, who lose one of their star backmen in Jack Payne for the remainder of the season. Here it's been a little bit of a different look from Port Adelaide, and we always like to toot our own horn on the ABC, and Dean Brogan has mentioned this over the last couple of weeks, that Ken Hinkley had shifted Port Adelaide into a handball-happy game the last month, and it looked like it was putting them into some awkward positions, and players were second-guessing themselves. Lost 4 in a row by an average of 55 points, go to Canberra and just get the job done against the Giants. And today they've been much more happy to kick, Josh, and that efficiency has been tremendous, and it seems to be pretty methodical moving the ball forward.
Well, it's interesting, having been in the AFL system as a coach, and probably back me up here, Scotty, when you play Melbourne, when they've got Lever and May, the last thing you want to do is just bomb the ball in there. They're such good intercept markers. They have that unique ability to come off the direct opponent to where assist and help the defenders out. So clearly, Port Adelaide have gone into this game wanting to kick mark, be really methodical with their ball movement, particularly from their back half and as they enter their forward 50. And look, I must admit, off the top of my head, I don't know what the average the average mark count per game is for each club, but they're tracking for over 100 or 150 odd at the moment, which is a huge number. How's my maths going?
Yeah.
Sorry, not good. So they've had 77 marks. They had 45 at quarter time. They've had 77 to half time. So that's a huge number in terms of the context of the game and the way that the game's played. But clearly that's a tactic from Port Adelaide's perspective, not to bomb the ball inside 450, and it has worked.
Yeah, you can tell they've come with a clear plan to own possession, and they've certainly got their balance right as far as kick handball goes. And when they have used hand, they've had the ability to draw in their opponent and release someone into time and space. I know we mentioned Butters on one occasion where he drew 2 to him and released Powell Pepper into time and space, which then makes that kick inside 50 a whole lot easier versus dumping it to the likes of May and Lever, as you've mentioned. And then on the flip side, we've spoken about Melbourne, who early won the contest, but all of their forward half transition looked really difficult. Their inside 50s were just dump kicks, which certainly has brought Radaglia, who's been outstanding for Port Adelaide, into the game. And then Port Adelaide win that and then set up their offensive transition off the back of some good defending, some good pressure on the ball to force Melbourne to dump kick. And you've mentioned their method moving forward with the ball and their ability to change the angles and hit that inside 45 kick, which then opens up the whole field. And then forward of the ball, we know how dangerous Georgiades has looked throughout the first half.
Well, it's interesting as well, Scotty. We spoke to Alan Richards pre-game, and he did actually make a point of mentioning stoppages and creating stoppages. Maybe that is their tactic, to kick it long out of their back 50 to a contest, try to create enough of a contest and get enough numbers around there that they can create a stoppage because they back themselves to win the clearance. Maybe that's their tactic. But at the moment, as I said, they look all at sea in terms of the way they want to move the ball and going inside 50.
Yeah, and that certainly worked early, didn't it? They were 13-2 in clearances in the first quarter, and then come that second quarter. So Melbourne won field position easily but couldn't score off the back of it. Whereas Port Adelaide in that quarter ended up winning clearance, so they get field position too. And it was probably only the first 10-minute period where Melbourne were able, or 10 to 15-minute period where Melbourne were able to use the ball a little bit cleaner by hand and put guys in better spaces with some of their angles and creating pockets of space. But when that falls away from Melbourne, it opens up Port's kick mark game, as you've mentioned, where back half of that quarter, a bunch of marks. I think they only had a handful 10 minutes into the second quarter, and then Melbourne's defence just slackens off slightly and allows Port Adelaide to play the offensive game that they want.
Ran the stats very quickly. So Port Adelaide heading into this game averaged 85 marks per game, and they're already up to 77 in this contest. And kick to mark ratio, they've had an average of 46 more kicks than handballs per game. So the way that they're tracking this afternoon, it's probably going to be close to that. But yeah, the marking game is certainly the big difference. And might have a look at the uncontested possessions as well if we get some time across this afternoon, because it feels like a total shift back to what they were doing in previous years. Ken Inkley tried to shake things up in his final campaign. It wasn't really clicking, and I think finally they've caved in and reverted back to what works best for them. Port Adelaide up by 24 points at the half. They are 9-6-60 to Melbourne's 5-6-36. All-Australian and showdown medalists Scott Thompson and Josh Franco, your experts this afternoon. On the text line 0437 774 774, Phil from Victoria says Pickett needs to be a show pony now that he's on a big contract. I feel a bit sorry for him. Hope he does well like Buddy Franklin. I think he's been tremendous this afternoon. I'm not even sure if it's... He is a human highlight reel, but I don't think he's putting it on. It's certainly part of his game. He's been positionally tremendous and damaging.
Well, 14 disposals, 78% kicking efficiency, 3 goals. He's been electric. And again, that's the reason why Butters, I reckon, identified that and tried to pick him off. And it could be reviewed. Absolutely.
Jenny from Victoria isn't happy about the Butters Cozzy Pickett conversation around that bump and feels like it was thuggery and that Butters should get a few weeks suspension.
There was no thuggery.
It was. They've certainly been targeting him a bit around the stoppage. I'm not sure if that one was as intentional as others have been.
But with good reason. Because he's so dangerous and electric around the stoppage scenario.
And Matt in Canberra says, I hope Stuart's earlier messages about robots umpiring the game was tongue-in-cheek. Human errors are part of the game. We did have a good chuckle about it, Matt. Port by 24 points. Let's get this third term underway on ABC Sport. Here's Tom Wilson.
So Ollie Wines is next to Cozzy Pickett, Petrarca and Bergman. Bergman's doing a great role there, and Butters and Viney. So Visentini knocks it down. Petrarca grabs it, gets the clearance by hand to Viney, who goes inside the forward 50. Fritsch! Over the top of Burton, takes the mark, 35 out, 45-degree angle.
Well, we mentioned at quarter time, I think the hit-outs were, they definitely were in favour of Port Adelaide, but that has shifted at the moment. It's 18-17, so Melbourne are +1 at the moment, and on that occasion, Gawn in there, just his ability to hit 360. On that occasion, it was Petrarca, and set up that inside 50. And I guess that's the danger of someone like a Gawn. You can't keep him down for 4 quarters. So the Port Adelaide ruckmen have to be right on their game in this second half.
Fritsch has been busy today, coming up for possession number 12. He has a behind to his name and adds a goal. That was straight as you can possibly kick it. Bailey Fritsch gets the D's on the board early in the third quarter. They go to 6-6-42, trailing by 18 points. Port 9-6-60, just a minute gone. That's
one thing he does do really well, Fritsch. Beautiful set shot, but what I did like was Petrarca's ability to test the tackle and Viney's angle out of that centre bounce there. And the kick wasn't perfect, but it was a flatter, punchier kick into the side of the forward 50 versus a dump kick.
Absolutely. And Tommy, you even mentioned it, that first centre bounce, you saw Wines match up directly on Pickett, which isn't... if you're a Port Adelaide supporter, you hold your breath in that example, particularly if the ball hits the ground with the speed of Pickett to get onto that loose footy.
They're going with it again in this centre bounce. Clearance was what Melbourne dominated in the first term. We're only down 6 points at that stage. It's currently an 18-point game here at the Adelaide Oval.
I can just feel something happening here with Pickett and Gawn.
Sun covered now by the Bradman stand as well, so only a little bit creeping out on the eastern side. Gawn down, hits Petrarca, another clearance, tumbling to that outer wing. Chandler and Burgoyne in a foot race. The power defender gets there first, but is wrapped up by the Norwood product. We'll get a ball up in front of the Odie stand.
I thought Gawn might have hit forward to the Ollie Wines and Pickett matchup, but didn't.
So Sweet knocks this one down. Petrarca's been busy so far. Chandler handballs over the top of his head to Langdon, who went underground. Oh, Butters just burst through in the twirl. That was tough stuff. Got it to Burgoyne, who's immediately wrapped up, but that's the skill of Zach Butters. So got a ball up centre wing. Gawn and Sweet. Sweet gets first hands on it. It's knocked forward for Port, but Chandler runs back onto it. Chucks it on his left foot, kicks towards centre half forward. Radigalia got first hands on it. Goes to ground though. Petty was in there. The leg's taken out of Alir. Play on, says the umpire. He looks hurt too, the big fella. And we're going to get a ball up here once the umpire sees that Zerk Thatcher can't get rid of it. 35 metres around from the D's goal.
They clearly, Melbourne, have a surge mentality out of stoppage. Chandler's dropped a barrel there just back of centre and just hopes that it goes near someone.
Port by 18, but inside 50 for the D's. Sweet down. Farrell gets the footy, hands it to Rosie. Under pressure, did well. Burgoyne forward to Burn-Jones. Wheels and releases Pal Pepper. It's a low dart. Wide of Horne-Francis. Pulls up to McVie and he's clobbered by Horne-Francis. It was just reckless.
Yeah, that was silly.
Threw an arm out, caught him high. McVie went straight to ground and a free kick to the Demons defender in defensive 50. We'll share it wide to May and out to the broadcast.
McVie actually did it pretty well. He sort of turned into Horne-Francis who got him high.
So Bowie gets the footy for the D's. Goes inboard to Salem, plays on quickly. Fritsch gets it to Langford, who goes inside the forward 50. Gone! He's floated back there, and he had Burton as a matchup, and the kick just dropped in his lap on his chest. He marks 30 metres out, slight angle.
It was a great handball chain off half back, but that exact kick there was just a kick and hope. We've been banging on about it all day with Melbourne. Who was at Langford? Just another barrel. He's dropped the barrel inside 50, and it's just luck of the draw that it's landed in Gawn's lap.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't perfectly executed, but when it comes to the scoreboard, it's outcome orientated.
Certainly is.
So Alir is coming off the ground. We'll get to Josh Money shortly, but Max Gawn, he thumps that but pulls it to the left in the process, minus score. So the D's 6-7, just on the wrong side of that scoreboard ledger with their goal kicking again this week. They go to 6-7-43. Port 9-6-60.
Started the quarter well, the D's. Dominating play at the moment.
Connor Rosie calling for options. Finally gets one late as Radigalia floats up to left half back and takes the mark. He'll hand it to Butters. Wanted to play on quickly, turned into trouble. Did well to get out of it. Across the body is kicked to Burgoyne at the defensive edge. Shadows behind him. As they kick to the right-hand side of your radio dial, the Riverbank stand end. A switch through defensive 50. Radigalia across to Rosie. In the back pocket at the moment. Shares it with Burton, right half back. Close to the boundary line. Port by 17 at the moment. The out-of-contract defender Ryan Burton kicks across the goal face.
They just don't want to go down the line here, Port Adelaide.
Radigalia to Farrell at left half back.
Short to Butters. Marks in front of Chandler. Feigned a handball. But takes his time. And there's that ball that's going. It's a dangerous one, but it works to Rioli's handball. Missed the target, straight to May. Turnover in middle of the ground, not where you want them. Going inside the forward 50 now, looking for Pickett. Brings it to ground. Sin did well in the end. He actually won the footy. He stole it from Pickett. Great work, Josh Sin. But McVie did just as well, beating Richards in a one-on-one contest and gets the intercept.
They've got targets everywhere alone at half forward. Turner far from home takes it. Arcs around from 55. Wants to go solo up towards the goal line. It clears the back. Disco Turner strikes it from downtown. And the forward turn defender floats back where he came from and strikes for Melbourne. They've got 2 unanswered goals to start this third term. And the margin's down to 11. 9-6-60 Port Adelaide. Melbourne 7-7-49. 6 played third quarter on ABC Sport with Scott Thompson and Josh Franco.
I'll tell you what, we saw the build-up by Port Adelaide again then, where they wanted to control the ball. They switched, but it was slower, and Melbourne were much better set defensively. So by the time they pulled the trigger on that inside kick, Melbourne were well set. No one wanted to go for the ball. I think it was May won it, created a handball chain through there, and got the ball back in their forward half. But if Melbourne are willing to defend are much stronger than they did in the first half, they're putting themselves right back in this game.
And Port Adelaide will give you opportunities, won't they, to turn the footy over.
Josh Money on the boundary.
Tom, looks to be a left knee for Alia, who's just having it strapped now. Has had a couple of painkillers as well, so it looks as though he will be at least right to give it a try and come back on shortly.
Petrarca wins it again in the centre, kicks forward, gets an awful bounce, did Farrell. Sparrow, handballs over the top to Oliver. Gawn running forward, he missed the set shot and misses the snap as well. That was 25 out. Normally you get those, but another minus score to the big fella. He's 7.850, Port 9.660. The D's have been surging out of the middle.
A few danger signs here for Port Adelaide.
10-point game.
We spoke about Petrarca at half-time. He's had 3 clearances already in this third quarter.
Melbourne dominating the scoring in this third term. Port Adelaide just looking for an opportunity. Can't get it out of the defensive half. Farrell to the broadcast wing looking for Bergman. Picked off by Langford.
And Scotty, the worry for Melbourne at the moment, there's been 3 centre bounces all in favour of the D's. So getting field position off of winning centre bounce.
Boundary throw in to come. Left half forward for the Demons. Looking to the northern end or the Cathedral side. Currently down 10 points. Tossed in. Sweet wins it down. Bounces off the shins of Wines. Ricochets off Sin back to the Brownlow medalist. Wines looks for Liddy. Wrapped up in the tackle by Rivers.
Another worry as well is contested ball this quarter. Melbourne 11-4. I don't know, it's early stages, but Port Adelaide can't get their hands on the footy in terms of the contest.
Tossed up, Gawn with the fist. Only found Bergman, set upon by Oliver. Another ball up to come. Defensive edge for Port Adelaide.
It's almost 9 minutes gone in this third term for ABC Sport. Good game here, Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. Knocked away by Gawn. Farrell was in the way, though. Got it to Drew. His quick kick was smothered over the top of Liddy. Didn't go out of the boundary, right on the paint, but it just played on. Liddy's got it now, tackled by Langford. His handball was intercepted by Fritsch. It's going to be a free kick for a dangerous tackle here. And that one's pumped inside the forward 50. The Port players are calling for 50, but they're not going to get it. So a dangerous tackle there on Liddy, who's taking his time to get up. Just looking at the replay, that is dangerous. Langford's going to be in trouble for that. It was the second motion that sprung him on his back. Landed on his back and head there. Taking his time is Manny Liddy. Goes down the line now and finds Pal Pepper. Forward of centre wing, members side of the ground. Darcy Byrne-Jones worked forward beautifully from the contest. He marks right half forward, just inside the forward 50. And Mitch Georgiadis leads into the forward pocket and takes the mark.
Well, we haven't seen Port Adelaide kick long down the line at all in the first 2.5 quarters of this game. And on that occasion, it came off Pal Pepper, the unlikely hero there. And then a terrific kick, I think it was to Byrne-Jones, wasn't it? That went inside 50. So actually a different method, but good play from Port Adelaide.
So Mitch Georgiadis is having a day out. This is a tough shot, though. He's right on the fence. 35 metres out in the right forward pocket, looking for a handful. In comes Georgiadis. He's hit it nicely. It's going to slide through. Very good attempt. Just away to the right-hand side. So the first score of the quarter for the Power, they're 9-7-61. Melbourne 7-8-50, 10.5 minutes gone third term.
Voice of Tom Wilson on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Josh Franco, Scott Thompson with you as well. Kick up towards half-back. Bergman put it down. Viney clean. Hands it off to Rivers. Crunched by Pal Pepper. Turnover. Burton inside 50. On the march is Sweetie. Left it for Georgiadis, who launched a little early. Out the back, the D's get the footy. Chandler has it in the right back pocket. To the eastern wing he goes. Looking for Sparrow. The other way came Van Rooyen. They sport each other under some pressure, but Van Rooyen's caught high. And a free kick to the towering big man for the D's. Currently down 11. He'll centre his kick. Bowie, little kick mark, chip around with Howes. And dart low towards Sparrow in front of the Bashir stand. Sparrow has it just behind centre wing. Looking for options, staring into the sun.
Goes long now. Flying in that one is Melksham. Hit him off the chest. Bounced off his chest. His handball was hot for Windsor. It bounced off his chest and out over the boundary line, outer side of the ground, just forward of centre wing for the D's.
Melbourne in that last build-up, just a little happier just to kick mark themselves and give Port a taste of their own medicine and actually make them defend.
Boundary throw in. Vicentini almost pulls it out of the ruck, but just knocked it straight to Viney, back to Chandler, who thrusts it in long. Ball hits the ground. Van Rooyen going to work, wrapped up by two of the power big boys back there in Zirk Thatcher and Radigalia, and we'll have a ball up 40 metres around from the D's goal.
Currently down 11. Sunday afternoon footy on ABC Sport. The Eagles and the Blues to come. Gawn wins it down. Horn Francis gets it out of there. Threw it on the boot. High towards the eastern wing. May entangled with Sweet. Off hands. Howes is there. Tries to hand it across to Windsor. Got a head strapping after his knock in the first quarter. Got it to Viney, then Chandler. Now Rivers. Sidesteps Bergman. Back inside 50 for the D's. Van Rooyen launches off hands. Vicentini's there. Hands a tunnelling one to Mead. Put him under pressure. Dove forward trying to get some head contact to get Melksham. Not paid. Play continues. Fritsch is chasing in the left forward pocket. Runs out of room and had so much momentum off the slightest of nudges from Burton that he leaps over the top of the LED fencing and down the race. Boundary throw in, 25 out, D's 50.
Tell you what, Aaron, I watched Aliir run then. He didn't look good, did he?
No, that's
with that
concerning.
knee. Whether the strapping's too tight, but he didn't look comfortable at all.
Very cumbersome. Boundary throw in. Gawn works his way to the front. Oliver's there. Fritsch too. Three Port players tackle him. Mead ends up with the footy. Went by hand looking for Wines and Oliver, two of the bulls of the competition. Ball comes out. Mead. The umpire's letting this one play on, so socket off the deck forward there by Melksham. Knocked into the hands of Burton. To Vicentini to Wines. Looking for Liddy, but just a bit too much on that kick. And Windsor takes the mark over the back. He lowers his eyes and finds Viney, who marks on the paint of the 50. Slight angle away to the right.
Well, Scotty, looking at some of the numbers, and it's a bit of a trend of the first quarter. The clearance count well in favour of Melbourne. Contested ball, ground ball gets inside 50s. They're looking pretty ominous at the moment, the D's. They kicked 2 goals this quarter from 9 inside 50s and dominating field position and dominating the play at the minute.
So Viney back into the team. This will take his best effort. Will need to go the full journey of 50. Runs to the paint of the 50. Hits it okay. Has it got the journey? The goal umpire hasn't motioned anything. He's going to check. Looked like it was going to be touched from here. It's the way that everyone's setting up. Just wait for the umpire's call.
Just watching Aliir in the meantime, and it's a bit of fee-fi fo fum. He's just wobbling around like this towering giant. It's just so awkward the way he's moving after that contact to his knee.
So the review is complete. Can't just quite hear that at the moment, but you can see Aliir's hand on the ball, so that'll be...
Player makes contact with the ball before it crosses the goal line. Decision on scoreboard.
So confirmed minus score there. So Melbourne go to 7-9-51. The Power are 9-7-61. It's Sunday footy for ABC Sport, halfway through this third term.
Just back to Aliir as well. Sometimes the strapping can be really tight and restrictive, but we'll definitely keep an eye on him because he's not moving well.
Was hobbling before he got it, so it might have been a bit of knee-on-knee contact, but he just looks uncomfortable. But playing out the game, Port ship it around through defensive 50. Treacherous exit from Drew. Richards, the defensive edge, did well against Viney. Takes the mark. Has a runner. Hands it off to Burton. Looks for the switch to Zirk Thatcher. Right half back for Port Adelaide. Go for a trot. Fritsch doesn't really want to close him down. Eventually commits and Thatcher sidesteps him, the big man. Sweeping handball a good 20 metres as well. Horn Francis breaks a couple of tackles. Here comes Butters over the top to Vicentini. Had an option short but didn't lower the eyes. Bangs it in and it works. Mitch Georgiades gobbles it up. Both mitts in the air. He's 20 from home. 45 to the right.
Well, Scotty, I'll tell you what, if you Zirk Thatcher, I think you asked him what you're doing there, he would have said, I got no idea. But I tell you what, it came off.
He dead set made that up. I think he almost confused himself.
He confused us as
and
well.
then just punched a long forward handball.
Wow.
To when it was Horn Francis broke the tackle, didn't he? And then put one on Butters. And, you know, between Horn Francis and Butters, their ability to break tackles, break the line, and the most dangerous forward on the ground in Georgiades at the moment.
Does he get a goal assist for that if he kicks it?
Surely. He started it all.
Score involvement.
Score involvement, right. Wow.
Mitch Georgiades comes in and misses.
Goodness.
To the left, it was never a chance. He's had a rough afternoon, albeit it should have been a bag by now, Mitch Georgiades. He's got 4 goals, 4. Melbourne moved the footy to the eastern side. They're down 11.
Oh, that's a good grab.
It was a good grab. Not paid to Sparrow. That's a big dump tackle from Willem Drew. Wraps up his opponent, so Sparrow's still wondering why that wasn't a mark. Got his hand on it.
I've seen less paid.
Certainly so. I reckon Gary Ablett Sr.'s mark of the century was probably very similar to that. So Butters gets the clearance report from that ball up towards left half forward. It's going to be a free kick to Lever, chop of the arms. Lever for the D's, right half back. The D's trailing by 11 points. Still plenty of time left in this third term. So he pumps it long down towards centre wing. Flying over the back was Lear. Didn't make much contact. Turner has dived on top of that ball. And Rosie was asking for the free kick in the meantime. Langdon just grabbed it. Got the handball away. And the D's go inside the forward 50. The ball hits the deck. Fritsch gathers. Goes at it again after a fumble. Tackled by Sin. And they're very keen to get this out over the boundary line. They do. The Power right half forward. Right in front of the scoreboard. Farrell is taken over. So we'll have a throw in. Power leading by 11 points.
On the text line, the Dragon Tiger very sarcastically says, "You asked who will pay Butters' fine for his bump on Cozzy Pickett." He said, "Once he gets to Geelong, the sponsor can." Like that one. Tossed in. Sweet wins it down, looking for Drew. Oliver got a hand in, knocked it to Horne-Francis. If you missed up pre-game, Chris Davies was emphatic that they were going to match any bid for Zach Butters next year as a restricted free agent. Tossed up. Van Rooyen wins it down for the D's. Couple of power players, though, at the tumbling footy. Butters clean to Rosie. Releases him through the eastern side. Kick to it. Outnumber. Mitch Georgiades did well to get it to the back. Just bounced awkwardly for Rioli. Boundary throw in to come at the Bashir stand. Port's up by 11. Bit of the momentum out of this game. The last goal was at the 6-minute mark. And we're up towards time on now.
Boundary throw in. Sweet knocks it down. In there was Rivers, who then, with Sparrow, laid a big tackle on Jason Horne-Francis. So the umpire will have that back and we'll do it all again. Sweet grabs it out of the ruck, tries to handball it away, but Windsor gets it. Been busier in this third term. Good fly there from Melksham, and he grabs one. Right half forward, he plays on quickly, the highest of balls inside that forward 50. Fritsch has a run at it, knocks it to Petty, who plays Rover, and he's going to get a free kick, Fritsch. 25 metres out in a slight angle.
They are certainly dominating field position, Melbourne, and they're relying on luck going inside forward 50. Like the entries now are 11 or 12 to 4. Just for the quarter, they've kicked 2-goal 3, maybe 3-goal 3, 3-goal 2-goal 4, depending on what Fritsch does here. But that last kick, that Melksham kick, he takes a beautiful mark and just turns. And I don't know if they were predicting rain today, but it's about to rain after watching that kick come inside the forward 50.
Your hands went up in the air, Scotty, when that kick went inside the forward 50. So Fritsch kicked the first of the second half. Got another big opportunity here. Only a slight angle, 25 metres out. The umpire moved a bit more this time, but that's 2 for Fritsch. And they're within a goal, the D's. They go to 8-9-57. The Power 9-8-62. We're into time on in the third quarter.
Well, Scotty, just on that as well, surely that wouldn't be a coaching and directive, would it?
Surely not.
Because it almost looks like they're lacking composure every time they're going inside 50.
I think there's a huge disconnect from that mid-forward entry going inside forward 50 where they're just blazing away. There's no real system going forward. It's a get it in there and they're relying on luck. They're either relying on someone to take a spectacular mark or hoping that the ball, like that Gawn entry before where Gawn takes that chest mark from a torp from Langford. And the same there with Melksham. Mate, you've taken a beautiful mark. Just have a little bit of composure versus that high, shitty kick inside the forward 50 that doesn't help or is not beneficial to any forward.
And it's almost just take a breath. Take a breath, let the play unfold a bit, rather than the long bomb.
Port by 5 in the middle. Sweet wins it down, then dives onto the footy and extracts the handball to Horne-Francis. Now Willem Drew with the clearance into the 50. Georgiades is pulled away from the ball drop by May, and the umpire will give him the free kick. Stephen May's had a man this afternoon. Max Gawn should pull him aside and give him a spray.
That's a fair shout, Aaron. I'll tell you what, Georgiades, conversely, has been absolutely outstanding, hasn't he? He could have 8 goals. What's he kicked? 4 goals, 4 at the moment?
4. I reckon he had 1 shot against the pocket, but the rest have been so gettable.
Yeah.
So Mitch Georgiades gets the free kick. There's a little bit of words exchanged close to the man on the mark. Umpire will move everybody out. Mitch Georgiades will be on his way. Starts his approach at right half forward. Leans back from 40, and Mitch Georgiades has a handful. An equal career high 5 against the Demons. Port up by 11 once again. 10-8-68 to the D's, 8-9-57. Time on in the third quarter. Sunday footy on ABC Sport with all Australian midfielders and showdown medalists Scott Thompson and Josh Franco.
I've just watched after Georgiades has kicked that goal. Pal Pepper was very quick to get over and let Stephen May know what he had done wrong. I'm sure he's giving him some feedback like he was giving his big ruckman in Gawn last week. But Georgiades had now 9 shots on goal. He's dominating as the most dominant forward on the ground. And Stephen May, if you want to shoot your mouth off, mate, you've got to come out and play a certain brand of footy the following week. And you are getting an absolute bath at the moment.
And it just, again, highlights the absolute importance of winning centre bounce clearance and going forward with the ball movement, because it does put defenders under the pump. And drew a free kick on that occasion through May.
Back in the middle of the ground. Socket off the deck by Drew. Up towards right half forward. That was a bad bounce for Salem. Went over there to Pal Pepper too. Rove by Bowie. He snap kick around the corner. Put Langford under pressure. Wines ran past him and gathered the ball. He was tackled by Salem out over the boundary line. Not sure how he got rid of that.
If he didn't kick that, that has to be holding the ball.
Yeah.
And then I think it may have even been out on the full if he does get some boot on it. But got to be holding the ball. That's incorrect disposal, surely. Boundary throw in instead, 80 metres around from the Powers goal on the right half forward flank.
Up by 11, tossed in. Gawn wins it down. It's bouncing towards the benches. No one can track it down. It'll be tossed back into play. So Mitch Georgiades had 5 against the Dogs last year. This is the second time in his career he's got a handful. The way he's going, he'll comfortably beat it. Imposing. And again, we spoke about this in the pre-game with Chris Davies, but no Jack Lukosius, no Todd Marshall, Ollie Lord and Jeremy Finlayson out of form. Just imagine how much better they'll be when they have someone outside of Mitch Georgiades to also contribute. Tossed in, at the back, Wines slides, trying to gather the footy. Pickett wraps him up. Ball popped out to Horn Francis. Here's Butters around the body. It's a low swinging kick. Slides its way up towards the arc. McVie gets it on the bounce. Hands it to Lever, then Oliver. Back where it came from to the broadcast wing. Fritsch flies across and is collected by Ratugolea. Nothing malicious in that, just a big arm across. Free kick to Fritsch. He hands it off to Langford. Again, a rushed entry, but it'll work. Alear's outnumbered. Van Rooyen front square, hands it to Turner. Petrarca's central, sidesteps Drew, snaps too low. Diving mark on the behind line. Is it paid? They're going to give it to Sparrow.
That was lucky. That was lucky that Sparrow marked that. But Petrarca had, was it Van Rooyen running past? Or Turner? One of the two.
No, it was Van Rooyen.
Van Rooyen.
And Sparrow was running the other way, had to quickly shift and dart with a dive forward. Took it on his chest. It's a tight angle. Tries to open it and misses as he curls it through for a minor score on the left. Port's lead down to 10. 10-8-68, plays 8-10-58. Still 3 to go in the third.
Yeah, missed opportunity there. Van Rooyen would have run into an open goal, essentially. So Petrarca went the snap and it didn't work out. Oh, Stephen May's taken a great contested mark coming out of defence for the Power.
Welcome to the game, mate.
A lot of pressure on Stephen May this week, certainly from the ABC commentary box.
This is probably better build-up as well. How it ends up, who knows? But instead of the long bomb, they're starting to kick mark their way around and try to pick their way through Port Adelaide's defence.
So May marked it probably 80 metres around from their goal, and they've worked their way all the way back to right half back. But as our man Josh Franco was talking about, they're just trying to control the ball a little bit here. So Lever goes short. Finds his teammate in Howes, who handballs it off. And perfectly placed kick for Oliver. Handball's back to Bowie. It goes inside the forward 50. It's a long ball. Penny finally found an opportunity. did Harry, and he's marked 25 metres out in a slight angle.
What does happen when you dominate play as much as Melbourne have? I know Port got one against the flow just before, but when you're continually peppering inside 50, as ugly as it looks at times, eventually the dam wall will break and you might find a couple of marks, and that was a great mark there by Harrison Petty.
Contested grab up against Zirk, Thatcher and Aaliyah. And an opportunity for Petty to impose himself on the game. And some reward for effort for the D's this quarter, who've worked their way back into the game. Petty's kick for goal is way to the left, just stuck in for a minor score. 8-11-59. They trailed by 24 points at half-time. Margins back to 9. Port 10-8-68, 27 minutes gone third term.
8 scoring shots to 3 for this quarter, 13-5 inside 50s, Melbourne's way.
Rosie, a little 1-2 with Wines. Kicks up towards the broadcast wing. Georgiades with the sit, nearly took the mark. Knocked away by his teammate in Vicentini. The D's now with the footy. Petrarca squeezes a kick between two, but a hit and hope straight towards half forward, and Horne-Francis was waiting. Hands it off to the runner in Mead. Kick towards Rioli, courageous. Collision course coming the other way with May. Did enough to get there and knock it towards the boundary line. Sin hands it off to Bergman. In the tackle from Windsor, got it out. Kick from Wines, smothered, ricochets towards Sin. He does his own hit and hope up and under towards half forward. Big tunnel there from Chandler on Butters, begging for the free kick. Wasn't paid, out the back door. Pickett tried to break away, tackled by Horne-Francis, missed his boot. Port get the turnover. Aaliyah kicks wide to Farrell. Stepped off his line, plays on. Arcs around Langdon. Farrell into the 50. Stephen May gets one back with the hanger as he sticks a knee into Powell Pepper. You don't see that often. Stephen May with a specky across the defensive 50. The Salem are now gone. The D's down 9 and have the footy.
From left half back, he looked for Van Rooyen, and Scott Thompson called it there. A push from Radigalia. Van Rooyen on the logo. Plays on now. Up towards left half forward. Hits the chest of Turner. So there's still time in this third term. Turner opts to go long to the top of the goal square, looking for Petty. Missed that shot before, roved by Langdon, knocked out towards Fritsch. He ran through Bergman, managed to gather handball back to Oliver on the left foot. And in the goal square as the goalkeeper is Farrell. He's going to play on quickly. All the players are basically in Melbourne's forward 50. His quick kick finds Sweet. He handballs over the top to Powell Pepper, who rode the tackle. They're waiting for power players to get inside the forward 50. Handball to the big ruckman, missed the target. Burgoyne's in there. Big tackle, Powell Pepper. He just rode him into the turf.
Wow.
And he's picked Varney. Well, Varney had no prior opportunity. I think he had less than no prior. And there's going to be a 50.
Oh, umpire.
Wow. Way to insert yourself on the game. It's a great tackle from Powell Pepper, but it doesn't mean it's holding the ball.
And when you line it up with the Ollie Wines non-decision here in front of us on the boundary line, compared to that,
it doesn't make much sense, does it?
What is the interpretation of that rule?
You're allowed to pick up the footy.
Oh, that's crucial.
So Georgiades kicked one on the siren at halftime to put the Power up by 24 points. Sam Powell Pepper has an opportunity on three-quarter time to make it 15. The D's have dominated this quarter. Got it back to 9 points. A tough holding the ball call, then a 50-metre penalty. Sam Powell Pepper lining up from 40 metres out directly in front. He sets sail from home, and you can hear the crowd. You can hear the roar. Powell Pepper makes them pay, and it's on at centre-half back. They're getting into Butters. Max Gawn's trying to separate Salem, and Georgiades as well. Ed Langdon and Butters. There's been spice in this match. And the Power get a goal on three-quarter time, making it 15 points. They're 11-8-74. Melbourne 8-11-59.
Classic Zach Butters picture there as well, where he went straight for the Demons and all of his teammates were celebrating with Sam Powell Pepper and no one was there to support him. He's going to be pinged another fine as well for his bump on Cozzy Pickett, you'd imagine, so he's going to end up with over $50,000. And I was just about to ask Josh Money if the main lights were on, because it was getting incredibly dark out there in the last 5 minutes and they've just switched them on. So it's a tremendously different look in those final 5 minutes. It was so dark, and now suddenly with the red footy as well, and now we've got the lights on in what's been an overcast day in Adelaide. Still a lot to come and a lot to play out. Port Adelaide by 15 points. The D's aren't out of this just yet. They're 8-11-59 to the Powers, 11-8-74. Goal scorers 5 to Georgiades, singles to Palpepper, Burgoyne, Bergman, Rioli, Horne-Francis and Burn-Jones. For the D's, 3 to Pickett, 2 to Fritsch and Van Rooyen, and 1 to Disco Daniel Turner. It's great to have you with us for the first of a doubleheader. West Coast and Carlton coming up next, and the final quarter coming your way on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. This is Sunday Footy on ABC Sport.
There are 3 warning levels across Australia: advice, watch and act, and emergency. To learn more, go to the ABC Emergency website and stay listening to your emergency broadcaster, ABC Radio.
This is the 2025 AFL Premiership season on ABC Sport.
They've got targets everywhere alone at half forward. Turner far from home takes it. Arcs around from 55. Wants to go solo up towards the goal line. It clears the back. Disco Turner strikes it from downtown. Sweet wins it down, then dives onto the footy and extracts the handball to Horne-Francis. Now Willem Drew with the clearance into the 50. Georgiades is pulled away from the ball dropped by May, and the umpire will give him the free kick. Stephen May's had a man this afternoon. Leans back from 40, and Mitch Georgiades has a handful.
Handball to the big ruckman, missed the target. Burgoyne's in there. Big tackle, Powell-Pepper, he just rode him into the turf. Wow. And he's picked Varney. Well, Varney had no prior opportunity. I think he had less than no prior. And there's going to be a 50.
Oh, umpire.
Wow. Way to insert yourself on the game. Sam Powell-Pepper lining up from 40 metres out directly in front. He sets sail from home and you can hear the crowd. You can hear the roar. Powell-Pepper makes them pay. And it's on at centre-half back.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the AFL.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Seesawing affair in the penultimate game to round 14. Port Adelaide lead by 15 points over Melbourne, 11-8-74 to 8-11-59. Another 50-metre free kick going against the D's and hurting them late. It was a 9-point margin now, that 2-goal game, as Port Adelaide look to stretch it and close in on their 6th victory of the campaign. Whoever loses this one will end up in the bottom 4. The winner, at least their season will be alive 2 games out of the 8. West Coast and Carlton to come next with Clint Wilden, Mitch Turner, Peter Bell, Chris Waterman and Bridget Lacey. Aaron Bryans, Tom Wilson, Scott Thompson and Josh Franco with you for the call here at the Adelaide Oval. On the text line 0437 774 774. Fran in Melbourne says, hey team, Port Adelaide are desperate to hear the song. Too bad Mitch Georgiades can't do the arrow. And Rod Jamison has flicked us a text as well. He says, the roast lamb's in the oven, the dark ales are in the fridge. I'm out for a walk tuning in. Sounds good. And the umpires have got to get better. He was harsh on them on Friday, and glad to hear you got home safe, Jamo, because the last time he ran through an airport he did a hamstring. So glad he made it safe back from the Adelaide Hawthorn game, and he's listening on the ABC Listen app. Tomo, Josh, what do you made of the contest so far?
Yeah, well, Josh, Melbourne certainly dominated play for the majority of that third quarter, didn't they? And Port Adelaide's 2 goals came from a 50-metre penalty, which was after the siren in the end, and Georgiades' free kick against May in a marking contest, and that were their those were the 2 goals that they scored for the quarter. Whereas Melbourne has gone inside their forward 50 14 occasions to 7. They've dominated clearance, they've dominated contested possession, just had the inability to convert in front of goal. May had a good look. A few others had a good look in front of goal. Harrison Petty missed an easy set shot. So their inability to convert, which hurt them last week, and some composure at times, I just hope it doesn't come back to bite them on the bum today, because they dominated the majority of that third quarter then.
Well, I think you've also nailed it throughout that third quarter, Scotty, in terms of, you're right, their lack of composure and inside forward 50, but a lot of times they're leaving it to luck. Just the high bomb inside 50, but also too, when you get a numerous inside 50s and repeat entries, eventually the dam wall does break. But they had the opportunities. A couple of snaps fell short, which if they kick, convert, they'll be close on the scoreboard. But it definitely sets us up for a big last quarter.
Other storylines as well. Zach Butters will be looked out for a bump on Cozzy Pickett, although this $12 million man is still out there, no concussion.
Tell you what, he went cold that quarter too, Cozzy, just the one disposal.
Judd McVie as well with a couple of incidents, shirt front on Joe Richards, belly rub with Mitch Georgiades, and Langford's going to be looked at for a dangerous tackle on Liddy. Play underway. Final quarter, Port Adelaide up by 15 points. Ball rolls towards half forward for them. Petrarca gathers and thumps it out to the eastern side. Petty's there, but Burton got in first. Sliding low, didn't come up with the footy. Picked up by Zirk Thatcher, collared. Free kick, right half back for Port Adelaide.
Zirk Thatcher with the footy. 15-point margin. The D's need to try and reel in. Powell looking to hold on in this last quarter. Kicking long down the line. Went through the hands of Gawn. Vicentini was there. He's trying to pick it up off the ground. Tackled by Lever. Not holding the ball that time.
Just looking out there, I can't see Alir. I'm not sure if he re-emerged after that three-quarter time break, but
he's on the red on champion data, which is not a good sign. I know he was working with the team doctor during the three-quarter time break. We'll see what happens there. Around the body was Sparrow. Kicks up towards left half forward. Ball hits the ground. It's going to be free kick, says the umpire. It's going to go the way of Melbourne. Port fans thought Zirk Thatcher deserved that one. Instead, Petty gets it. He kicks inside the forward 50 now. Can they capitalise on their opportunities? Going inside this quarter. They couldn't do it in the third. Well, they certainly blew their opportunities. Let's get down to Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Josh Franco all over it. Alir really has been subbed out. Just didn't look right with that knee, so that's a huge blow for the Power. Huge accident into the game. The Demons have also made their sub with Trent Rivers out and Xavier Lindsay in.
Tossed in. Melbourne's forward 50. Vicentini down. Picked off by Oliver. Quickly tackled by Drew. Got boot to ball. 10 metres to Richards for the Power. Did well under duress. Rosie with the fancy footwork. Wheels away. 2 bounces up the corridor. Sweeping handball to Horn Francis. Turn and go as he chips it up towards Sweet. Awkward bounce. He waited for it. And McVie on the burst cuts it off. Central kick. And Pickett takes it in defensive 50. Wasn't 15. Had to rush as he's called to play on. Places it central. Burton cuts it off on the bounce. On the half volley, hands it off to Richards. Backspin for Mead as his handball misses the target. Bowie picks it up for the D's. Thrusts it towards the logo on the broadcast wing. Langford spinning out of trouble. Handed it off to Lindsay, the sub. Tackled by Burgoyne. Affected the kick. Dribbles its way back towards Drew. Pinballing around. It'll wake its way towards the centre square.
Powell Pepper, big contest with Pickett. He was wrapped up. Then Oliver went in for the tackle as well. Ball spilled out. Petrarca goes out wide to Chandler. Bowie's got some time. Defensive side of centre wing looking for Gawn, who just pulls in a strong mark. Just too good. And while Vicentini was on the deck, he just played on quickly. Pumps inside a floating ball inside the forward 50. It's dribbling towards the goals. Petty runs onto it, tackled out over the boundary line by Radigalia. And we'll have a throw in left forward pocket.
Look, a little bit critical of Melksham there. Going inside forward 50, I think he was the deepest forward. Just had to come at the kicker and provide a lead. Just wanted the long ball in one-on-one. It's not the kick. Defences are set up so well these days. They come off to support aerially, but had to lead at the kicker.
Port by 15. Vicentini down to Rosie. Trying to break away from Pickett. Good pressure. Turnover. Oliver with the check side misses to the left-hand side.
I'd love to see Oliver just try and put that somewhere 15, 20 metres out, top of the goal square. Give him an opportunity at least.
Criticism last week was that he just blasts away when he gets the footy and rushes his kicks off a step, and he kicked it out on the full in the dying stages of the King's birthday. Port's lead 14 points, final quarter on ABC Sport.
So Butters has got it just defensive side of centre half back. He's got Horn Francis leading out towards the wing, and the kick is perfectly placed on his chest. Going to bring the ball inside. Finds the sub in Jackson. Handballs to Bergman, who kicks a high ball. Rioli's got some space. Running back was May. And after he gave away that goal to Georgiades, has certainly played well, the big man.
He's had three good grabs.
Yeah, really important aerial contest he's won.
Port by 14. The D's chipping it around. Howes to May. And then back to left half, back in front of the Wanganeen stand. Short to Salem. Mentioned it at three-quarter time, but the last 5 minutes of the third quarter was really dark. They didn't turn the lights on despite it being overcast across the day. And there's a red footy out there. It's getting harder to see, even though the lights are now on. Radigalia rises above the pack as it's kicked down the line and knocks it over the boundary. Derek on the text line says, I love the use of the red footy, but surprised they're using it this late in the day.
Is there a ruling if you start a game with the red ball, you can't change it to yellow?
I reckon that is, yeah.
It'd be tough out there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Feels like a night game as we close in on just after 5 o'clock local time. Tossed in. Gone down. Oh, beautiful Horne-Francis. Bursts through the pack. Don't argue on Petrarca. Gives it to Richards. He looks to switch into territory in front of Rioli. He had some trouble with Howes breathing down his neck, and it's knocked over the line.
Just on that, Scotty, I wonder if they've messed that up, because this was always going to finish under lights, wasn't it?
250 start.
Yeah. So you'd think they would have started with the yellow footy.
Absolutely. That burst from a young kid watching footy and timing out of stoppage by Horne-Francis is unbelievable then.
Boundary throw in. Gone with a big slap forward. Burgoyne runs onto it, taken high by Chandler. So he'll get a free kick. Centre wing. Members' side of the ground. Thought about the handball to Burton one way, and then Burton ran around the back and got it back. Goes to Mead. About 80 metres from goal. Sin's got a lot of space just by the centre square, and he gets it to Bergman, who marks on the paint of the 50 right half forward. He's got this journey if he wants to be, I don't even want to use the word selfish, because it's going to be the right option. He thumped one earlier in this game from outside 50.
And that's probably been the two contrasting styles of moving the ball inside their forward 50. I reckon that last kick to Bergman from Melbourne would have gone long and deep, but Port Adelaide has the ability to lower their eyes.
So Bergman will take a kick at 55 metres. He's got good purchase on it, but just pulled it away to the left. Hit the chest of Gawn. Oliver gathered. He took on the tackle, got the handball to Bowie. Kicks out of defence. Turner. Good grab. Playing a nice roll up forward. Took the mark in front of Burton. He's got it at the D's half back. They're 14 points behind the Power, and there's going to be a 50-metre penalty again.
Rioli
running by, just too close to the player with the footy.
We had someone on the text line talking about how he's not great with that rule.
Gives away a lot of them. Turner plays on quickly into the 50, looking for Petty. Fist came in from Radigalia. Christian Petrarca there to pounce. Hands it off to Sparrow. Fridge snaps and doesn't get the angle. Pressure came on him immediately from Sin, and he misses to the right-hand side. Port's lead down to 13 points.
Again, is that too harsh a penalty? Like, Rioli's cruising past. He didn't impede on anyone or anything, and they just allow Melbourne to go 50 metres up the ground.
There's no common sense in footy.
That's for sure.
It's too harsh. If they're going to do it, they're going to bring in the Sandford 25-metre penalty rule. It's just... It's going to cost teams games, and maybe it already has this weekend. Liddy's got the footy at left half back, chips it over the top to Bergman. Offensive side of centre wing. D's trailing by 13 points. They've kicked 8 goals, 13, so they've had 2 more scoring shots than the Power. Nice ball there from Bergman and Georgiades, who takes a good mark.
Even
Sorry,
Tom, even honouring that kick, it makes May defend. He can't drop off and then intercept this next kick.
May inside the forward 50, flying at it was Powell Pepper, brought to ground. Howes is in there, laying a tackle, and we'll have a ball up left half forward for the Power, who lead it by 13 points. They're 11-8-74, Melbourne 8-13-61. 8 minutes gone, final term.
Kicking to the northern end, Vicentini, edged out of the ruck drop by Van Rooyen, no whistle. Langdon on hands and knees, shoots a handball towards Langford. Up to centre wing, Radigalia late, crunches the packet, collapses, Butters is there. Beautiful spin out of dodge, around the body in the Rioli direction. Flying was Vicentini, couldn't take it. Big push on Rioli or Melbourne.
Van Rooyen.
It's going to Van Rooyen.
Vicentini front on contact, I think.
So Van Rooyen at the other end for the D's, while Turner's up front. Thumps it back to the broadcast wing. 2 Ds collide in Petty and Turner. Freed up Sweet to take the footy. Handball missed its target, and Butters becomes the tackler on Petty. Port by 13 points. 9 played, final term on ABC Sport. The Eagles and the Blues coming your way next.
So Sweet knocks it down to Wines. Handballs to Bergman, kicks towards centre half forward. Vicentini's going to have a run at this. Manages to fist it to the space of Rioli. He runs onto it. He's 35 metres and he lowered the ice to Burn-Jones, who finishes! A great opportunist goal from the Power. Rioli to Burn-Jones, who gets his second. And Port get the goal. 12-8-80, Melbourne 8-13-61, almost 10 minutes gone. Sunday footy for ABC Sport in this final term.
I don't know whether Melbourne missed up their positions then at that last stoppage, but Darcy Byrne-Jones and Zirk Thatcher had a 2v1 forward of the ball. And when that spoil came and went inside to Rioli, Byrne-Jones able just to spit forward uncontested and stroll into an easy goal. So I'm not sure, Melbourne, bit of confusion amongst positions there.
What about the decision of Rioli too, not to have a ping at it and just be selfless and pass it off to Byrne-Jones?
Look at the amount of space in this replay that Byrne-Jones has got forward there.
Yeah.
Port by 19. The game high margin was 24 at half-time. We've had single-digit margins in their last two meetings. Could it be the same this afternoon? Sweet and Gawn collide. The power ruckman wins out and then dives into the footy. Trying to rip it out is Pickett. They leave the footy behind and the ruckman and the small forward and they get entangled whilst Viney walks away with it. Kick up towards the eastern side. An awkward bounce there. Didn't favour Lindsay. Left it behind. Viney goes again. Geez, a bull. Got it out to Sparrow. Then Lindsay tackled. Coughed it up to Liddy. Crushed. Bowie comes in, brings him to ground, ball up on the eastern side.
Yeah, there was a bit of byplay there between Sweet and Pickett. I didn't see what happened, but it looked like Pickett maybe came in a little bit reckless and made some contact with Sweet, which he definitely wasn't happy about.
Wines dives on top of the footy. He's going to get pinged here. That's bread and butter for the umpires. Langdon sat on top of him.
This next kick, I reckon, is the important one from Melbourne's perspective.
Langdon. It's a high ball. Going to have a few flyers. Fritsch was one of them. In the end, he decided to stay down. He got tackled, dropped the ball. Byrne-Jones has worked his way back. Handballs it to Rosie. His snap kick found Rioli. Couldn't quite complete the mark. Howes gets the handball out into his teammate in Windsor. Windsor kicks forward. They've got the numbers, Melbourne, but Burgoyne did well to get a fist in and punches it out over the boundary line. It was a 2-on-1 against the Power young defender, but he got it out over the boundary line. We'll have a throw in right forward pocket. The Power lead by 19 points.
Melksham was calling for that ball deep. He's about 90 metres off the ball.
Voice of Scott Thompson alongside Josh Franco on ABC Sport. Tossed in. Gawn out bodies. Sweet. Bounces towards Pickett. Sliding in. Couldn't control the footy. The paddle hits up Drew. Burgoyne and now Sin. Tumbler for the Power. It's cut off by Powie. Whack. Straight back in. Thumping kick. His 11th intercept of the game as he pushes off Melksham and took what looked like a specky, but it wasn't really. He just flung himself backwards to take the mark. And across the goal face, he'll share it to Burgoyne.
Superb game, Redigalia.
Port by 19. Burgoyne to the broadcast swing. 3-on-3 there. Gone. Too good, too strong for Sweet. And the skipper, they'll need him in this final quarter, as they have in previous weeks. Previous campaigns as well. He chips it over the top to Windsor at right half forward. Windsor close to the boundary line. Decides to set it up. 30 from home. Charging out Van Rooyen. Fist came in from Radigalia. Bounces towards Byrne-Jones. Tackled quickly but got a handball away. Rosie arcs him board. Kicks down the line. There's a free kick downfield. I reckon Byrne-Jones was put down. So it'll come back to where Rosie kicked at left half back for Port Adelaide.
So he's just going to be asked to be moved around on his mark.
And they've got the outnumber on the open side with Redigalia.
So he's just going to wait, see if something in front of him presents. He's going to go down the line. So looking towards Gawn, and Visentini managed to knock it away. Gathered by May. Handball to Langdon. Took on the tackle of Drew. Just got the handball away in time. Gawn to Petrarca to Windsor. Snapped around the body, but Bergman's in the right spot. Takes the mark. Let's go to Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Tom, a real concern for Port Adelaide. Jason Horne-Francis came onto the ground holding his shoulder, came up about 20 seconds later and has now gone down to the room. It's just his first game back, of course, from a hamstring injury.
Missed a month of footy. Hopefully it's not another injury on return. Down the line, Pat converges. Ball hits the deck and will get a ball up.
Just been watching Cozzy Pickett the last few minutes. He's only had the 2 possessions since half-time. So whether that head knock has impacted the way he's been playing, or whether Port have put a huge amount of work into him in the second half.
Gone down to Viney, got it back to his skipper. Had one arm pinned, so threw it on the boot around the body. And it curls straight to Connor Rosie behind centre wing. Port by 19. 9 minutes to go here at the Adelaide Oval. Rosie plays on. Casually pops it wide to Farrell. Rob on the text line in WA says, finally someone agrees with me on the 25-metre penalty. The Sandful is an industry leader, I reckon, on a few rules. I like last touch between the arcs as well. Farrell close to the benches, squeezes it down the line. Georgiades rises, couldn't claim it. Lever at the back, hands it off. Howes bangs it out of there. High ball towards the boundary line. Jackson tracking, knocked away from him. Boundary throwing left half forward for Port Adelaide.
Great courage there from Jackson. Started to suck, has come on in this last quarter, coming back with the flight. Didn't know what was coming. Good courage from the young fella.
How's that crowd, Tom?
30,982. I reckon you predicted something quite similar there. So we've got a boundary throw in. And we'll have another ball up from that. We'll pay your dues. That was pretty good stuff.
They heard my threat. Said, nothing over 35, please. We won't believe it.
Gawn knocks it away, back towards the boundary. Foot races on. Farrell and Pickett. Farrell knocked it to his advantage. He was pushed in the back. Umpire didn't see it. Kick forward. Will it stay in? Just dribbled along the boundary line.
Is that deliberate?
What's the call
wow. That's disgusting.
Disgusting.
That holding the ball call at three-quarter time was nearly the worst I've seen. That's probably going to match it. That is a stinker.
Down the line go the D's. Players converge, throw a blanket over them. Zirk Thatcher knocked it out of there with a volley. Up to half forward, Mead. Clean hands, releases Butters. Who else but Georgiades? He's been everywhere. Surging out of the goal square, takes it on the chest. 35 out, slight angle to the right.
It was interesting, just watch that play unfold. Lever was actually on Jackson Mead, who ended up with the ball. He sagged off to try to get back to support, but Port Adelaide's ball use inside their forward 50, and a great lead there from Georgiades. That was outstanding play from Port Adelaide.
Already on an equal career high handful.
And it's the way you beat a Lever or a May dropping off to aerially support.
Mitch Georgiades crosses the paint of 50, drives it low and hard. It's across the face. He squeezes it in. A bag for Mitch Georgiades. Career best haul. He's dominated at the Adelaide Oval. Port up by a game high 25. 13-8-86 to Melbourne's 8-13-61. Closing in on time on in the final term. Scott Thompson, Josh Franco, your experts on ABC Sport.
I think you called it really well, Josh, with what Melbourne want to do defensively. They want to zone back. They want to create aerial support for a long ball that comes in. But Port Adelaide, from the start of this game today, have been wonderful at lowering their eyes, changing the angle of the ball, and giving their forwards a great opportunity to present up at the ball.
6 goals for Georgiades. He's had 6 goals, 4.
He's missed some sitters too, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's 2 sitters, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like, he easily could have had 8. Just a remarkable performance. They rely upon him so heavily up forward. Vicentini knocks it down, but Gawn gathers. Butters laid a big tackle. Here goes Vicentini, setting sail for home, up towards the goal square. Georgiades again! That's got to be a mark, and it should be 50. He's marked that so clearly. May's just thrown him into the ground, and it is.
Where's Gawn?
Where's in the middle of the ground?
Get up there, Gawn. Getting his drill.
The Port boys are telling Gawn too. Have a look.
They are. Vicentini up there and Burton. That is a brain fade from May. It wasn't going to be necessarily an easy shot in the right forward pocket for Georgiades. But now it's a soda.
7 goals.
Georgiades is taking his time too, which is quite intelligent, really. Georgiades, top of the goal square. He's got 7. Beating his career best by 2, and there's still time. What a performance. 7 goals, 4 from Mitch Georgiades. 10 marks. What a superstar he is today. Port leading by 31 points, 14-8-92. Melbourne 8-13-61. Almost 20 minutes gone, final term. Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, and Tom, potentially some more good news for Port Adelaide. Jason Horne-Francis has emerged from the rooms with his shoulder heavily strapped and looks as though he's going to give it a go.
Scotty, question without notice. How have you found Gawn today? I must admit, whether he's escaped me, I don't reckon he's had the influence that he has had, or that we know that he's very well renowned for.
Yeah, I think we come to expect it from him, don't we? He hasn't had that influence. He's sort of willed himself into the game as the game's gone on, but he hasn't been as impactful as what you'd normally expect from him.
And I guess that's just highlighting the job that Vicentini and Sweet have done. They've been outstanding.
Max Gawn with 31 hit-outs, just 7 to advantage. Here's a tap from him. Landed in the lap of Viney, but wrapped up by Wines. He had 80 hit-outs combined in the last 2 meetings and 3 Brownlow votes against Port Adelaide. Probably just hasn't been as dominant this afternoon. Takes it out of the ruck and threw it on the boot. Gawn. Little check side 2 metres to Langford. Now Bowie shoots it out towards the eastern wing. McVie on the bounce gives it to Lindsay. The Morris medalist down the line. Here's Petty far from home. In front of the Williams stand. Has a run-up. Releases Lindsay into the 50. Melksham went for a huge hang-up. And it's going to be deemed a push. Radagalia's popped up a little hobbly, so both he and Aaliyah walking wounded. But, gee, that would have been a special mark had Melksham actually been able to touch it.
He claims he did.
So if he marks that, it's a mark.
Yes.
And he's touched it, so why is it a free kick?
It's a good question, Scott. He's claiming he touched it.
Having said that, he paid a push, though?
I think he paid... I thought he paid unrealistic attempt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he paid a push, but...
So boundary throw in from that free kick out to the outer side of the ground. Gawn just takes this one out of the ruck. Handballs back to the sub in Lindsay, who just puts it into about row 8 off the side of his left foot. And that Port fan, you won't be able to see him, of course, but got a mighty fist on that one. Pretty happy with himself. Good spoil. Probably taking a bit of time off the clock as well. No doubt the umpires called time back on. So 22 minutes gone this final term. Port Adelaide have really kicked away with it. Rosie goes long down the line. Just couldn't quite get to Sam Powell-Pepper. It bounced off his knee. So Melbourne have an opportunity here through Langdon to Viney. Handball's out wide to Chandler, who steps back in board. They don't have a lot of options here. Lindsay now kicks towards centre-half forward. Flying at that was Radaglia, but it bounces back over the top towards Langford. But Port Adelaide, a handball out towards the boundary line. Not going to be pinged this time, so he'll have a throw in. Josh Money on the boundary.
Yeah, Tom, not certain we'll see Jason Horne-Francis again. Just had a really long conversation with Ken Hinkley, up by 31 points. I think the coach was saying probably not worth the risk.
29 touches on return, but you don't risk your superstar when the game's almost wrapped up.
Put him on ice.
31 points. Port Adelaide's lead tossed in close to the Demons 50. Beats both ruckmen out the back door. Burn-Jones, smart. Fake turning inboard, instead went out. Hits Powell-Pepper close to the eastern wing boundary line. Central kick to Bergman. He's waiting at right half back. Question on the text line about Mitch Georgiades standing in the Colemans. He was 10th heading into this round. Down the line, gee, that was an elite leap from Georgiades. Plenty of hang time, but nowhere near the footy. Melbourne free kick. Central kick nearly cut off by Drew. Howes paid the free kick. Continues the switch. It's another treacherous one. Langford did very well. Stuck the mark. Up against Jackson. Hands it wide to Windsor, who tucks it under one arm. Running through centre wing. A big shepherd as well from Langford to free up his teammate on Jackson, and the kick up towards Fritsch, who marks on 50. They want to go. They know they're down by 5 goals. Fritsch arcs around from 50 and nearly strikes it perfectly. Just screwed late into the right-hand goalpost. Port by 30 points. So Georgiades started in 10th this round. These 7 goals will move him up to 31 for the season, and he'll be in 5th. So it's a big performance. He still will end up being 9 behind Jeremy Cameron, though. So the cat is far and above beyond ahead of everybody else.
His last 5 or 6 weeks, Jeremy Cameron has been phenomenal. Just does it with ease. Coming out of defence, though, for Port is Zirk Thatcher, and just kick long down the line, and Max Gawn takes the mark. Almost uncontested, but Georgiades made him earn it a little bit.
And free kick count for the day is 19-12. That's in favour of Melbourne, so +7 Melbourne's way.
Interesting. So Gawn goes back to May. He's near the centre square.
This just about snuffs Melbourne out, doesn't it? In terms of finals.
Yeah, they'd have to have some sort of run, a GWS-like run.
Yeah.
So Clayton Oliver kicks inside the forward 50. Another high ball in. Comes to ground. Fritsch was tackled by Pal Pepper. Ended up in the hands of Bergman, who kicks towards the logo. Mead's going to try and touch this. He does. Otherwise, I think they would have pinged him there.
No, he did that well, Jackson.
So he takes it out in front of Oliver. Boundary thrown. Port leading by 30 points. It's 14-8-92. 8-14-62. Melbourne, 25 minutes gone, final term.
So the D's in 15th in the bottom 4 on the live ladder, but they're only 3 games behind the 8. So it's a very close season, and you never say never. Just mathematically where they're positioned and who's above them, it gets harder and harder from here. Tossed in, gone down, looking for Oliver. Couldn't get a clean touch, but does tackle Georgiades. Spun him in the washing machine, full 360. No whistle, and then Georgiades is caught high. Coming in late was Langford, and a free kick to the man with 7 goals, Mitch Georgiades. He won't be having 8 from here, though. He's on true centre wing broadcast side. Into the 50 go, Port Adelaide. He nearly reeled it in. Bounced off his shins as he hit the deck. It was a high fly. Bounced out to Pal Pepper. Rosie tries to keep it in, but runs out of room, and it rolls over the line. Bit of cramping for the skipper. Boundary throw in, 20 out.
$30-point margin for the Power, who've backed up their performance from last week over GWS. Get them to 6 and 7. Still got 2 home games to come in this little run. Sweet knocks it towards the goals. Georgiades was tracking back, but Bowie read it best. Kicks the ball from the right back pocket for Melbourne. Down the line, and Radaglia gets the fist over the top. Fans like that. And we'll have a throw in about 80 metres around from the Power's goal members' side of the ground.
I was just looking back at Gawn's numbers, and we were talking about him before. He's up to 23 disposals. 10 of those have come in the last quarter, but if he'd kicked those 2 goals, we're probably talking about his game completely differently, aren't we?
Still feels like he's carrying the burden of this footy club and needs some others around him to shine. Out of the boundary throw in, Oliver to Langdon. Now Turner pops it into the 50 and presenting. It's a good mark from Melksham. Been playing a negating role over the last couple of weeks. But Jake Melksham now lines up for his 200th career goal. It'll be on a tight angle, though. 40 from home. He'll start on the fence. Jake Melksham with 57 goals with the Bombers before he was traded in 2015. Now, in the red and blue, Melksham crosses the paint of 50. Kick is terrible. It's across the face on the behind line. Rising is Penny. Got in front position and claims the mark. He'll be on a straight line angle close to the behind line. Harrison Petty. The Norwood product back home in South Australia. Chance to open his account for this afternoon.
Yeah, not a big day for Petty, just the 6 disposals.
Opens the angle, bangs it with a lot of power, and it's through for his first. Margin down to 24 points. Port Adelaide 14-8-92. Melbourne move along to 9-14-68. 27 played in the final term. Sunday footy on ABC Sport. Coming up next, West Coast and Carlton from Perth Stadium. We'll get you there pretty quickly if you're listening in Victoria, Tasmania, WA and the NT. Everybody else, you'll stay with us for the fallout in the rooms, and then we'll get you to Perth Stadium around 6:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Scotty, one player that's escaped me in terms of haven't really been tracking him is Cozzy Pickett. Just the 2 disposals in this second half. I don't know if he's been run with or what. I think you mentioned whether that contact has taken a bit of the wind out of his sail, but has had absolutely no influence in this second half.
No, he's pretty much been non-existent in the second half. When he's gone forward, I've noticed that Sin has played really close attention to him in the front half.
Back in the middle of the ground, Gawn gets the handball towards Petrarca, but was tackled by Butters. Fell to Wines, to Butters, to Rosie.
What a kick.
What a combo. So that was a banana kick to Jackson on the lead.
Yep, and intentional.
The skills of some of these players out there, especially the superstars. So Jackson goes back to Burton. He's defensive side of centre wing. Just going to milk it here, Port, which is the smart thing to do. So Wines has it in front of the interchange benches, and the Power bench just letting know their players how long there is to go. And Sam Powell-Pepper takes A nice mark at left half forward, and the power chant is ringing around Adelaide Oval as Power Pepper sends this inside forward 50.
Heads towards the left forward pocket. Georgiades sweeps. Used the body, brushed off Gawn, takes the mark, and then called to play on. Shrugs off Bowie, central handball to Mead, throws it on the boot, misses to the left-hand side. Port Adelaide's lead 25 points as we close in on the final siren. The Power 14-9-93, Melbourne 9-14-68. It was a tough start to their season, but Port Adelaide are daring to dream. They've won 2 in a row after their bye and are hoping to pull off a miracle run to September. Melbourne's nightmare extends to the bottom 4. Port Adelaide winners by 25 points at the Adelaide Oval. 14-9-93 to 9-14-68. We apologise for the quality of the song there. Almost a bit of a rave on ABC Sport, the way it was going up and down. But we will get the song in the rooms for those listening in South Australia and DAB Plus, as well as the ABC Listen app. Everybody else, we're going to take you to Perth Stadium in about 7 minutes' time. Port winners by 25 points. They're up by 6 at quarter time, 24 at the half. Melbourne pulled it back to a 15-point game at three-quarter time. Port Adelaide 3 goals to 1 in the final quarter. End up winners over the Demons 6-7 on the year. Melbourne 5-9 in front of 30,982. Mitch Georgiades' previous career best was a handful. He finishes with 7 for the afternoon. 2 to Burn-Jones, Siggles to Horne-Francis, Rioli, Bergman, Burgoyne and Palpepper. Let's give it another crack. Port Adelaide winners at the Adelaide Oval. And that'll be shortly lived, I think. It was worth a try. Great to have you with us, though, on ABC Sport. Thanks for toughing it out. It's West Coast and Carlton coming up next. And, of course, all the fallout on Monday as part of ABC AFL Daily with Corbin Middlemass, Ben Cameron and Paul Roux, Scott Thompson, Josh Franco, your experts to break it all down. The goal kickers for the Ds as well. 3 to Pickett, 2 to Fritsch and Van Rooyen, and singles to Turner and Petty as Port Adelaide win 2 in a row and continue to move back up the table. They're sitting on the live ladder. That'll move them up towards 11th and maybe even 10th, actually, because they'll jump Essendon on percentage. So, gee, that's a huge result for the Power to go from bottom 4 all the way to 10th place on the ladder. And Melbourne will be down at 15th as a result of this loss. Josh Franco, Scott Thompson, what do you make of it all?
Well, Scotty, I must admit, when I think about Melbourne, I can't help but thinking it's a movie we've seen before. So by that I'm talking about contested possessions, the ground ball gets, the clearance count, all in favour of Melbourne. The inside 50 count, 54 to 48 Melbourne's way. Scoring shots, 9 goals 14 to 14 goals 9. So their ability to connect inside forward 50, and we talked about it to death throughout the course of the game. Port Adelaide, conversely, were able to go into this game with a game plan to negate, I guess, one, the influence of a Max Gawn, but also their 2 key defenders in Lever and May behind the ball, who are terrific in terms of their ability to come off their opponent and air assist and help their defenders out. So they took and nullified their influence superbly, I thought, Port Adelaide, by using that kick mark and their methodical ball movement, particularly from their back 50 through the middle of the ground, which ultimately inside their forward 50 to connect cleanly and create scoring opportunities, I thought was the difference.
Yeah, spot on. And across the course of the game, Port Adelaide, with that style you're talking about and the method going forward, they were able to generate 34 more marks than Melbourne across the course of the game. The uncontested game, they got the game on the outside and got to play it the way they wanted to. They were plus 44 in uncontested possession. Yep. So in that regard, they got the game on their terms, where Melbourne weren't able to defend that. And we saw Port going forward, the ability to go slower with the ball, as in composure piece with the ball, versus looking rush like Melbourne did. And they had really strong positive build-ups through kick mark chains, their ability to change angle of the ball, which gave the likes of Georgiades a really clear direction to lead in that forward 50. And then Melbourne, when they went forward, we've touched on the fact they went inside 56 more times. They won clearance. They smacked them in contested possession. For large chunks, they own field position, but their inability to have that connect from centre forward inside 50 was their real breakdown again today, and it's really hurt them over the course of this season, where the last piece going inside is just a rush kick or lack of composure or complete disconnect with a dump kick, which doesn't help any of the forwards. It makes it a real grind, and we spoke to Richo before the game around Melbourne's forward line today, and again, that was their inability to convert in front of goal and their inability to lower the eyes and make it an actual advantage side kick for their forwards to give them a shot on goal.
And that's staggering in terms of they don't have a Thilthorpe or a Curnow or a big, strong contested marker. So it sort of defies logic that they would keep persisting with that game plan and the way that they want to move the ball inside their 450. And the media, the footballing public and footballing world have been talking about Melbourne's inability to connect inside 450 for a long time now. So probably begs the question, why doesn't it change? What's going on?
You look at a Collingwood who recruits a Tim Membry and you go, why hasn't Melbourne done something like that? Just find someone tall that you can pluck into the forward line and they can take some marks and kick some goals. Because, they're heading into this game, their top three for goal scorers was Pickett, Fritsch and Petrarca. And then Jake Milksham at 4, who's usually a lockdown. And Van Rooyen kicks 2 tonight, but their tall forwards haven't really been firing.
Well, the other thing as well, there's numerous occasions where I think I even called it in that third quarter, Max Gawn had the ball and Melksham, no one actually really leads at the ball aggressively. And if they do, they never lower their eyes. They're happy just to bang the ball long inside 50. And as you mentioned many times, Scotty, throughout the call, that you're leaving it down to luck, which you just can't rely on in this game.
No, and the reality is when you're relying on luck and just dumping it in there, you're not going to win too many games of footy. And it played into, during the call it was said that this was possibly Radagalia's best game for the club since he's been here. And I don't know how many intercepts he ended up with over the course of 4 quarters, but he was outstanding for Port Adelaide today. So he's ended up with 12 intercept possessions across the game, and he was one of the main reasons why Port Adelaide were able to rebound and set up their offensive attack through his ability to read the ball, and they played into his hands. But then it really set up Port Adelaide's offence because of the way Melbourne went forward with the ball.
Also, Scott Thompson and Josh Franco. I might just quickly get your votes as well. 3, 2 and 1 with a minute to go.
Scotty?
Well, you can put them in order for me, Josh. I'd throw Horne-Francis in there, Radaglia in there, and Georgiades in there.
I reckon Georgiades gets the 3 votes.
Yeah, kick 7.
Horne-Francis the 2.
29.
And the 1...
Radaglia
the 1.
Yeah, 12 intercepts.
Perfect.
That's good. 3 to Georgiades, 2 to Horne-Francis, and 1 to Asava Radaglia. Port Adelaide winners by 25 points over the Demons and now sit in 10th after starting the round in the bottom 4. It's a crazy turnaround, and the D's unfortunately take Port Adelaide's spot down with the cellar dwellers. So a rough run for them. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide have a pretty favourable draw from here, so the Swans and the Blues to come. We'll see if they can start to piece together and salvage their season. No late changes out in Perth. Clay Hall is the sub for West Coast. Corey Durden for the Blues. And if you're listening outside of South Australia, you're headed that way. Clint Wilden, Mitch Turner, Peter Bell, Chris Waterman and Bridget Lacey, your call team on ABC Sport to wrap up round 14. Enjoy it out west. We'll see you next weekend in South Australia.
As each day begins,
get the facts you need to stay informed.
Every day, across your day.
Stay with Australia's trusted news source.
all the latest, all verified. Stay in the know with ABC News.
On ABC TV and ABC iView.